I didn't. It hurts.
It works.
And that's how it's going to continue working. Yeah, good times. Good times during COVID there.
Muir, ABC's World News Tonight, America's most watched newscast. Now streaming same day with all the breaking news of the day on Disney Plus. Most watched, most trusted. Now on Disney Plus every night.
Tonight, we have several breaking stories as we come on the air what President Trump just said about Iran amid possible U.S. military action.
Yay.
Also breaking tonight, former President Bill Clinton. The questioning today lasting hours about Jeffrey Epstein.
Is it
President
happening?
Clinton saying, I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong.
I saw nothing?
President Trump tonight saying of Bill Clinton, I like him. I
He
don't
looks so
like
tight. Who,
seeing him
David?
deposed. Tonight, what we've learned about what played out inside the hearing. Also, the breaking news on Iran tonight is the U.S. preparing to take military action against Iran, what President Trump said just a short time ago. Also, just in tonight, the extraordinary showdown between the Pentagon and artificial intelligence giant Anthropic, the company refusing to give the Pentagon unrestricted access to its AI technology. The company says it's concerned about the potential of fully autonomous weapons without human involvement.
No, just Skynet.
Today now banning Anthropic from all federal agencies. Tonight, the Nancy Guthrie disappearance, the vehicles in those early morning hours, one car seen on a ring cam within minutes of Guthrie's disappearance. Authorities tonight say it's this kind of video they still need, with Savannah Guthrie tonight posting about the family's $1 million reward and the ability to stay anonymous. Tonight, the U.S. military mistakenly shooting down a Customs and Border Protection drone near the Texas border using a high-powered laser. The confusion between agencies leading to potential danger in the skies. Tonight, the FAA has restricted some of that airspace until June. What's going on? The father whose son is accused of killing 2 teachers and 2 students taking the stand in his own defense today, breaking down during his testimony.
Oh, it's like Super Bowl ad for told the use of ring cameras. Yeah.
What that father said about that. The deadly train derailment at rush hour, the train jumping the track, slamming into a building.
You see that? This is why trains are so dangerous, guys. You don't understand. You want these trains going 300 bajillion miles an hour through your city? Can you imagine what would happen? It would be like a nuclear bomb. All right? This is why you can't have trains.
We are tracking a new snowstorm hitting this weekend. We'll have the forecast. The scare on the field for Lionel Messi.
Not that there's tens of thousands of car crashes and stuff, that kill people all the time. That is why we need to make nuclear bombs instead of trains.
Who was tackled to the ground, remembering a legendary singer-songwriter tonight.
Breaking up is hard.
He famously sang, "Breaking up is hard to do." And we heard from so many of you at home responding to our story on Punch the Monkey. Abandoned by his mother, shunned by the other monkeys, you will definitely want to see what they've shown us tonight.
So much attention given to a monkey. Meanwhile, children in Gaza literally fucking, getting blown to bits. The last Auschwitz survivor passed away.
Tonight here with several breaking headlines. What President Trump said late today about Iran. Is the U.S. preparing to take military action? What he said in a moment.
That's terrible.
Also tonight, just moments ago, former President Bill Clinton finishing more than 6 hours of questioning about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Testifying behind closed doors before the House Oversight Committee. The former president telling the committee, quote, I saw nothing and
that
I
in the
did
news
nothing
earlier
wrong.
after the first stream.
Lawmakers tonight saying he answered every question, never taking the fifth. Tonight, President Trump
answered every question.
Bill Clinton testifying today saying, I like him. I don't like seeing him deposed. Rachel Scott leading us off from Chappaqua, New York tonight.
Tonight, former President Bill Clinton becoming the first president in American history
Hey,
forced
Rainbow.
to testify before Congress. Grilled
very
for
nice to
several
see you.
hours by the Republican-led House Oversight Committee about his relationship with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
I think the American people have a lot of questions.
In his opening statement, the former president declaring, I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong.
No, you can stop at the wrong part. I saw nothing and I did nothing. That's just, that's the plain, simple answer, right? I think, wait. No, I have it over here. Sorry. Here we go.
connection with Jeffrey Epstein?
Does he know where he is? Yeah. You know, classic Bill Clinton.
Insisting I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. Adding, even with 2020 hindsight, I saw nothing that ever gave me pause. Clinton has not been accused of any wrongdoing.
That's Merck forever living memed. Yeah, it does.
He did have a friendly...
He never knew the guy. I don't know who he is. Oh, he's just, you know, both in silky shirts, hanging out with the convicted pedophile. Weird, bro. Just weird. This is hella weird.
Relationship with Epstein. The Justice Department's Epstein files show him posing with young women. He's pictured here in a pool alongside Epstein's accomplice, convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, and then here in a jacuzzi with an unidentified woman. Sources tell us the former president told lawmakers he did not know who that woman was, and when asked if he had sex with her, he testified he did not. His testimony comes after his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, spent nearly 7 hours with the committee.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey
I don't know how many witnesses I had to kill.
Bill Clinton today saying bringing his wife in to testify was simply not right. Democrats today saying since Republicans subpoenaed Hillary Clinton, they should also speak to the current First Lady Melania Trump, since she actually did know Epstein. But first and foremost, they want to hear from President Trump, who had a long friendship with Epstein.
Republicans have now set a new precedent, which is to bring in presidents and former presidents to testify. We are now asking that President Trump officially come in and testify in front of the Oversight Committee.
Republicans refused to call the president in.
Ranking Member Garcia asked President Clinton, quote, should President Trump be called to answer questions from this committee? And President Clinton said, that's for you to decide. And the president went on to say that the president, Trump, has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved, and he meant with Epstein. So I know there's a lot of curiosity about President Trump. I thought that was an interesting thing that President Clinton said.
President Trump, who has directed the Justice Department to investigate Bill Clinton's Epstein ties, today said this.
Look, I like him, and I don't like seeing him deposed.
Democrats have a different take about what former President Bill Clinton had to say about President Trump, but soon the American people will be able to see it all for themselves. The committee is now working to make the video of these depositions as well as the transcripts available as quickly as possible, David.
Why? We didn't get anything from it. What I want to see it.
Breaking developments in the U.S. and Iran negotiations. Is the U.S. now preparing to take military
action? That's all we know where. Yeah,
against
exactly.
Iran? What President Trump said a short time ago amid these negotiations and what he says Iran refuses to agree to, with a massive U.S. military buildup tonight across the region. Here's our chief foreign
Iran refuses to lay down their arms in Gaza.
Tonight, President Trump making it clear crucial talks with Iran aren't going well.
We're not happy with the negotiation. They just don't want to.
This is the worst X-Men iteration I've ever seen in my life.
We're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They have to say we're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and they just can't quite get it.
They've said that.
Repeatedly said it doesn't want a nuclear weapon. Also at issue.
Yeah, Iran's repeatedly said they don't want a nuclear weapon. They've said that several times.
Nuclear enrichment, which Iran claims they want for civilian purposes. Late today, President Trump ruling it out.
It's been 30 years that they've had a nuclear program.
Not 20%, 30%. They always want 20%, 30%.
Zero nuclear bombs have been created.
30%. They want it for civilian, for civil. I think it's uncivil. So I'm not happy with it now.
The president saying no final decisions been made on military action.
He's going to bomb Iran.
All the pieces are in place for a strike. Soon. New satellite images show the massive military buildup in the region. Nearly a dozen F-22 fighter jets at a base in southern Israel. Rows of refueling and reconnaissance aircraft in Saudi Arabia. And 2 aircraft carrier strike groups now moving into position.
Oh, we are loaded
up. It comes after a 12-day war between Israel and Iran last June. The US joining, bombing Iran's nuclear sites. President Trump repeatedly saying those facilities...
Oh, yeah, that guy that came in here earlier today that said something about races is the future, and I was like, It's some white supremacist. It's insane.
Were obliterated. Critics questioning
Actual
if that's
neo-Nazi.
the case, why Trump, who vowed not to drag America into
got banned
foreign
already.
wars, may soon strike Iran
quick.
again. David, the president.
Yeah, the U.S. joining, we're doing it ourselves. What do you mean?
He'd rather do it the peaceful way, but that any deal must be meaningful. David.
Ian Panel back with us tonight. Ian, thank
Yeah,
you.
also, like, what he said
involved in
didn't
the
make any
Pentagon
sense
tonight, a remarkable
anyways.
showdown between the Pentagon
Dudes are
and
always
artificial
missing the
intelligence
fucking,
giant Anthropic.
brain
The company
cell.
refusing to give the Pentagon unrestricted access to its AI technology. The company says it's concerned about the potential of fully autonomous weapons without human involvement. Late today, President Trump now banning Anthropic from all federal agencies. Here's Martha Raddatz.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, they're using the Skynet story as an excuse to ban Anthropic after Anthropic doesn't want to hand over all of their information. Elon's like, let's put Grok in the Pentagon. The Grokagon, you mean? Yeah. So the Pentagon, what was it? Pete Kegsbreath wanted he wanted Anthropic to forcefully work with the Pentagon. They said no. Because apparently they used Anthropic to as part of the raid on Venezuela, and Anthropic saw that they were doing that, and they were like, "No, we don't want to be complicit in that." And so now they're either like, "You work with us, or we're going to shut you down."
Tonight, an extraordinary showdown between the Pentagon and tech giant Anthropic over their artificial intelligence
they use Claude.
currently used by the Pentagon. At issue, Anthropic wants to prevent the Pentagon from having unfettered access to their most advanced AI. The company concerned about the possibility of fully autonomous weapons, where AI makes the final decisions on when to fire and when to kill without humans in control. The company also saying it does not want its technology to be used for mass surveillance of American citizens.
Well,
tonight, with the showdown at an impasse, President Trump now ordering all federal agencies to immediately stop using Anthropic's technology, saying the U.S. will never allow a radical left woke company to dictate how our great military fights and wins wars. That
I wish they
decision
were.
belongs to your commander-in-chief and the tremendous leaders I appoint to run our military.
Anything I don't like is
and
woke.
Moments ago, Secretary Pete Hegseth moving to designate Anthropic a supply chain risk, essentially blacklisting the American company from government work. Hegseth saying America's warfighters will never be held hostage by the ideological whims of big tech.
They just don't want the shareholders to get spooked.
Anthropic is the first AI company to use classified networks and is considered the most sophisticated, which will make it hard to replace. And the CEO of OpenAI, Anthropic's competitor, said earlier that his company and some others share the same red lines as Anthropic. David? Sharing
the same concerns. All right, Martha Raddatz will continue to follow this.
I guess on Americans, sure, but not on Palestinians. I mean, they're like, here, Israel, do whatever you want to do. You want to make a program called Daddy's Home? Yeah, why not? No, let's make 3 of them.
Thank you. We turn now to the Nancy Guthrie disappearance and to the video from doorbell cameras. The vehicles in those early morning hours. One car seen on a ring cam within minutes of Guthrie's disappearance. Authorities tonight say it's this kind of video they still
it's been
need,
a month.
with Savannah Guthrie posting tonight about the family's $1 million reward and the
hasn't had her
ability
medication
to stay
in a
anonymous.
month.
Here's Trevor Ault.
Far as we
Nearly
know.
1 month after Nancy Guthrie was abducted from her home, tonight Savannah Guthrie
pacemaker
is
hasn't been on
for
in
the
a month.
critical tip that could lead to her mother posting, "Please be the one that brings her home."
We need to know where she is.
Damn.
We need her to come home.
Savannah telling any potential tipster they can stay anonymous and still get her family's $1 million reward.
You can be anonymous if you want. Someone out there knows something that can bring her home. Somebody knows.
I mean, that's
We are
true.
begging you to please come forward now.
Investigators are
I
still
still don't know
hoping
why.
someone can
Like,
identify
why?
the
Like, what was
masked
the
man
motive?
with a gun at Nancy
At this
Guthrie's
point,
doorstep
you know,
the night
it's
she was
like-
taken. If your tip qualifies for the reward, you can be paid in cash.
When in
To
doubt,
make a
do we
tip,
just
they
blame and
provide
say
a
it was
PIN number
Israel?
You'd present when picking up the money at a neutral location. No ID required, and it's not traceable with no questions asked.
Pima County Sheriff's Department.
Tonight, the Sheriff's Department is looking into videos like this one from Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood, a ring video obtained by Fox News showing a car 2.5 miles from the home
That's
at
a
2:36
Kia
a.m.
Soul.
around the time Nancy was taken. Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker disconnected from her phone 8 minutes earlier at 2:28 a.m. That car is one of 12 captured on that camera between midnight and 6 a.m. Police have not said it has any connection
Narrowed
to the
it down
abduction,
to every
but it's the
car.
kind of video investigators are asking residents to send them as they work through thousands of hours of footage.
And David, the sheriff's office stresses this is an ongoing investigation. They also say they will continue to keep a patrol in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood.
David, Trevor Ulp on this case again tonight. Trevor, thank you. We turn now to the father whose son is accused of killing 2 teachers and 2 students in Georgia. The father taking the stand in his own defense today, accused of buying his son the gun, even when there were warnings. What the father said about that, tearful on the stand. Here's Steve Osunsami.
The father of the teenager accused of killing 2 students and 2 teachers at the suburban Atlanta high school is tearfully defending himself on the witness stand, saying he didn't see warning signs that his son could kill.
You know, he's a good kid. I don't know if anybody could ever see that kind of evil.
But prosecutors say that Colin Gray ignored too much, charging him with second-degree murder, saying that he bought his son this AR-15 style rifle used in the killings at Appalachia High School as a Christmas
What do you think he was going to do with it?
About 7 months after getting a visit from the sheriff's office saying that the FBI had flagged his son for allegedly threatening online to shoot up a different school. The father admitted to jurors that he kept guns in the home unlocked, even after conversations with his son about panic attacks and depression.
Lock him up.
Was a thing that him and I used to bond with, and I was very clear on the rules.
Oh, yeah, he bonded for sure.
His son is now 16 years old. He's in custody tonight, and he's waiting on his trial. He's pleading not guilty to murder and other charges. His father is pleading
Bruh, yeah, I know. You handed him the guns.
Prosecution is
What do
part
you
of
mean?
A larger effort to hold parents responsible for these school shootings across the country.
That's insane.
Steve Osunsami reporting from Georgia tonight. Steve, thanks. Tonight to Texas now, where the U.S. military mistakenly shot down a Customs and Border Protection drone right near the border using a high-powered laser. The confusion between agencies leading to potential danger in the skies, and tonight the FAA has now restricted some of that airspace for months. Here's Whit Johnson.
Tonight, the FAA now restricting airspace near El Paso, Texas.
So this is why they shut down the El Paso airport, right? So they still fired off the laser anyway, and they ended up shooting their own people. And now the FAA is like, oh, fuck that. Yeah, airspace closed. We lose planes and oceans off carriers, and we shoot our own drones.
Through June after yet another confusing and dangerous moment in the skies. The U.S. military using a high-powered laser to shoot down a drone they thought was a threat near the U.S.-Mexico border. But it was a drone being used by Customs and Border Protection, another U.S. agency. The incident troubling as those lasers could pose a threat to commercial aviation without coordination between agencies. In a statement, the Pentagon and other agencies saying the laser was used to mitigate a seemingly threatening unmanned aerial system operating within military airspace.
For the Department of Defense to shoot down a Customs and Border Protection drone would demonstrate a shocking breakdown in air domain awareness.
It's the second time this month airspace in the area has been restricted after the laser technology was deployed. Just 2 weeks ago, the FAA issued an urgent temporary closure after CBP used it to shoot down what they believed was a threatening drone, but turned out to be a Mylar balloon, both of which are often used by Mexican cartels.
If the military and civilian law enforcement are going to continue,
why don't we hit it with the
operating
missile like
together
we did
along
the
southern
Chinese,
border, there needs to be
weather
dramatic
balloon?
improvements in coordination.
And David, the Pentagon and CBP insist they will work to increase communication to prevent incidents like this in the future. David.
Whit Johnson with us here tonight with
Texas mentioned, I guess. Trump went to Whataburger. Trump stops at Whataburger during his Texas visit today. I don't give a man. The fuck? Okay. Oh my god. That's it? All white, yeah. Look at the guy working there. Oh. This is terrible. I don't know if if our locations are franchise owned purely, but I'll take the number 19, the Epstein files, cut the blacked out names and images. Very nice. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. When we come back, remembering a famous singer who famously declared breaking up is hard to do. Also, more news ahead tonight, the horrific images, the deadly tram derailment at rush hour, that tram jumping the tracks, slamming into a building. We'll have more on this in a moment. Also,
wait, is that even in the U.S.?
Worker trapped in the mud, the hours-long rescue, and how they were able to finally get him out. And you want to stay tuned for this tonight. We heard from so many of you at home after our story on Punch the Monkey, abandoned by his mother, shunned by the other monkeys. You will definitely want to see what they have sent to us tonight. Tonight, a tram going off the tracks, crashing into a building, killing 2 people in Milan, Italy. A driver capturing this video right here. The train
in Italy?
Suddenly jumping.
So not even in the U.S. They made it seem like it was in the U.S.
40 others injured. That crash under investigation tonight. Back in the U.S. in Florida, a race to rescue a man stuck in a mud pit. Firefighters found Andrew Giddens shoulder deep in the mud. This is near a sand plant outside Gainesville. He'd been reported missing and was stuck for several days before he was found. Rescuers using ropes, ladders, shovels to free him. Giddens is in critical condition, but he is expected to recover. An incredible effort. When we come back here tonight, you'll see the scare on the field for Lionel Messi, who was tackled. And we remember a famous singer tonight who said, breaking up is hard to do.
Oh, no, not Messi.
To the index of other news tonight, more winter weather for the Midwest and the Northeast this weekend.
Look what is scary. Yeah, I bet.
On Saturday, a quick
blast. What? They held off on the weather until the 17th minute? No way. How is it the world news if you're not telling me about the local weather right away for 10 minutes?
On the move from the plains there to the Midwest, up to 4 inches of snow in some areas. And then they tell us on Sunday, light snow.
What kind of peeve I was wanting the snow?
New York City, Boston. Forecast models so far predicting less than 2 inches. We do have a passing to note tonight. Legendary singer-songwriter Neil Sedaka has died.
I don't know who that is. All right, what else is on here?
Field, one man wrapping his arms around Messi, pulling him to the ground. Security guards there rushing in, Messi getting up very quickly. He was unhurt. When we come back on this Friday night, we heard from so many of you.
The news is so sensational, man.
Stay tuned here. The new video they have just sent to us.
I don't care. I don't care about Punch. I'm glad he's doing better. There's other things that we should be a lot more concerned about. That people should be training to fight the monkeys. You should be training to go fight Israel, bro. Be, training to go fight your local school bully that's bullying probably your own kids. Training to fight the people that hide that they used to be bullies themselves. I don't know what else I can say about that. It's kind of infuriating. Myself being a lifetime, victim of bullying in school. That you wonder where these people were when you were getting the shit kicked out of you on the playground. But yeah, a monkey. Yeah, let's gear up and fight. Fight other monkeys. Don't worry about the bullies that you should have been standing up against. I don't know. I don't know how else to say that. I find this really annoying. But also, there's children in this world that need our help, and we're not doing much to stop them from being completely obliterated by the by the military of Israel. Yeah, I mean, that brings me here, I guess. Prince Harry, of all people, calls for aid corridors to be opened in Gaza.
Yeah, the humanitarian situation in Gaza is dire. Nowhere in the region is shouldering as much of the burden as here in Jordan, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were left in no uncertain terms about just how desperate this situation is over the last 2 days. They are walking a diplomatic tightrope. Prince Harry's people did not want him answering questions about Israel. The Prince did not want to answer questions about his uncle, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, because the fear is that then every headline would be about that and not about what is unfolding in Gaza and the refugee camps.
It's all a distraction, yes. It is
Jordan.
all
And
a
in fairness,
distraction.
it's a standpoint that they have backed up with cash. $500,000, which they donated to humanitarian organisations, including the World Health Organization, just before Christmas. And speaking to the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, he said actually that money attracted yet more money. But the need here is vast, as you're about to see from our report, and a warning: it contains disturbing images from the start.
A trickle that should be a torrent. At the specialty hospital in Jordan's capital, they want more patients, more evacuees from Gaza. Patients like 14-year-old Aisha, who had to wait 5 months for the treatment she needs from an Israeli airstrike that killed her 8-year-old brother.
I
woke up and I thought my leg was going to split in half. There was only a small part holding it together. I thought I lost my leg. I started screaming, begging, please don't amputate my leg. Do anything, but don't amputate it.
As hard as it is to get patients out of Gaza, it's equally difficult to get many medical supplies in because of Israeli restrictions. A shortage of equipment, a shortage of people who can use it too.
Many of the doctors in Gaza, they died because of the war. Many. And many of the specialties, there's no doctors that cover that specialties anymore. And many doctors from all the world, they try as much as they can to get inside, but it's not allowed.
The ceasefire in Gaza was declared 4 months ago. This was the scene east of Gaza City today. Palestinian health officials say 600 people, including children, have been killed here since October. Israel says its near daily strikes are retaliation against militants who violated the truce. It's not
How are they violating the truce if you're blowing them up all the time?
This refugee camp is home to more than
And
50,000
civilians.
Syrians, many of whom don't want to return despite the fall of the Assad regime.
I want to be in a
Yeah, many of the doctors in Gaza died because of the
And you want to
war.
be in Jordan, being a doctor?
Yes.
Jordan's home.
No, Syria, in Jordan.
For 2 days, the World Health Organization has hosted the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in
I mean,
Jordan.
I saw a graph earlier, a minute, not that long ago, maybe like an hour ago when I was scrolling, and they showed that they've basically wiped out an entire generation. An entire generation of Palestinians in Gaza have been wiped out.
A chance to see how their $200,000 donation is being spent and shine a spotlight on the WHO's work. But it's an organisation the US has withdrawn support and funding for at a time of exceptional need.
And Trump wants to come in and, have these people work hotels and sports facilities for the West, for the investors, for the tech, for the billionaires.
In Gaza.
The current humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Of course, we welcome the peace deal, and we hope that will turn into a permanent ceasefire. But the situation is still catastrophic because there is extreme deprivation of the population, and at the same time the healthcare system is actually shattered. So that's in general what the situation is. Of course there is improvement since the ceasefire, but it's a marginal improvement and a lot has to be done.
But in your assessments, which the WHO must be doing safety assessments, does the Israeli argument stand up?
I think in terms of the extent of control they have, the risk they say is minimized. So I don't see it. I think they can open up more. And that's what I was expecting also with the ceasefire, but that's not happening. It's really a marginal improvement, and I hope they will improve.
You are facing a huge demand for what the WHO does for your services at a time where you face a bit of a funding crisis and the USA has pulled out of the WHO. How detrimental is what Donald Trump has done to what you provide to the world?
Of course, the withdrawal of the US is a lose-lose one, because it's not about the world only. And, staying in WHO for the US is actually in its best interest. So it's a loss for the US, and it's also a loss for the rest of the world. And with the rest of the world, I said, their contribution and their leadership has been very critical and important.
I have to interrupt. We remember the actions of the United States are not the actions of the people of the United States. This was posted earlier by Prem. A Gallup poll showing that sympathies in the Middle East are now in Palestinian favor. This is something that's never been done before. For decades. For decades, we've been sold the thought that we should only feel sympathy for the Israelis there, that they are the true victims. But, after October 7th, that's changed. Was that the goal? I believe so. I believe that was partially the goal of everything that's happened. What does it cost? It's it cost everything. But now the world sees. The world has seen that, not only is the situation there dire, has it been dire for decades. We've been sold a bunch of lies, basically, on what the situation is. Media, we've seen it in the media, we've seen it, in TV shows. Now we're wrapping it all together and, saying, hey, this is, CSI, like whatever the CSI is, that has the Israeli character on there. This is all, propaganda. This is like small drops here and there that we see that we're shown, to show favor. NCIS. Yeah, I'm sorry. Probably CSI too. All of these propaganda shows, right? They'll have some, they'll write something in there that the Captain America movie, the latest Captain America movie that came out. This is all, shown to us to show that, oh no, this is actually, these guys can never do anything wrong. They're always right. They're always right. And that's one of the reasons TikTok was sold off, right? In the US at least. So that we don't see this stuff. But I thought about it earlier today, because Bucks posted it on Threads, and he posted a video from like 2024 of a resistance fighter, planting like a homemade bomb of some sort on a Merkava. And I was like, yeah, that's from 2024 actually. I'm like, but made me think, I'm like, man, we haven't seen those videos in a while. I can't tell you the last time I saw one that was, like the helmet cam. They've really kind of stopped that production. They've stopped the spread of those videos. You don't really see them as much. And that's the way our social media is. It's heavily controlled to prevent prevent this, to reverse this, because they're doing everything they can to make this go the opposite direction now, of where the line is crossed. But still, our governments are not us. Those that are in the control of the levers are not us. This is not ended, obviously.
And their cooperation, that's what the rest of the world is missing. But at the same time, they will also be losing. Of course, after the announcement of the U.S. withdrawal, we have been doing restructuring, revised our budget. Of course, they have announced that they have left, but it's the assembly that will decide in May. And as we speak, we still work with them because, as I said earlier, withdrawing from WHO has consequences for the US. So we still share information with them because, especially on health security, because this is a safety issue. And we want the American people to be safe, so we share information with them on a regular basis.
Given that the WHO is facing a funding crisis, that you've lost the US money, how important is A, the vast sums of money that private donors like the Duke and Duchess of Sussex can give you, and B, the spotlight that they help throw in your work?
It's not just the funding alone. The key is the advocacy we do together. And that itself can also bring resources, because it's not just the money. Even the amount of time the Duke and Duchess are spending in supporting us, the advocacy can bring support, can bring resources, but at the same time can bring awareness as well.
Well, Dr. Tedros and Prince Harry have actually formed quite a close relationship, and rather unexpectedly, Prince Harry then joined us. And again, he's adamant he wants the focus of this trip to be what's unfolding in Gaza and in Jordan, and not what's unfolding in London or Windsor with his family. Look, I understand you don't wish to talk about your family, your uncle, things back in London. You're here because you don't want to distract from the work that you're doing on the WHO and on Gaza. So firstly, why are you here in Jordan? Why is it so important to you?
I think having spoken to Dr. Tedros for many months now, well, years, but specifically months in the lead up to this trip, it was really important for us to highlight the incredible work that Jordan does for this region. I think the work's been going on for decades, but more so recently as being a humanitarian hub for the Middle East, and especially everything that's going on in Gaza and also Syria as well. So I think the world should be incredibly grateful for what Jordan is doing and the moral leadership that it's showing for the world right now.
Yesterday, we were with you at a hospital where children are still being brought in who have only recently been injured in Gaza. How important is it that the world continues to pay attention here?
I think it's important for everybody. It's not just for me. It's not just for Dr. Tedros. I think the entire world has spoken up, and there's a lot of stuff in the news. It goes at an incredible pace, and what's been happening in that region has been going on for a long time, and it drops out of the news. So I think it was a really important time for us to collaborate and come here and shine a light and focus on the very real humanitarian catastrophe that has happened and continues.
We were with you this morning at a charity that is getting food into Gaza and is feeding 1 million people a day, but they're saying they're not getting anywhere near enough food. Medical aid isn't getting in, journalists aren't getting in. Would you like to see an increase in all those things going in? Would you like to see independent journalists being let into Gaza? I think
again the world has spoken many times. So I think yes, everything that I've heard and everything that I've seen, especially from World Central Kitchen, what we heard this morning on the live link, was that the aid corridors need to be opened. They're currently not, and I know Dr. Tedros has already talked extensively about food and medical supplies. The basic needs for full access for humanitarian organisations to be able to deliver that aid to the people that need it the most.
Dr. Tedros, Duke of Sussex, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for covering this.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, not much has changed, even though the coverage has. Here's Chris Hedges again.
Does anyone have a general idea of the death count in Gaza? Well, it's certainly not. What is the latest figure is about 70,000. It's certainly far, far higher than that. Those numbers are based on registered deaths at either hospitals or morgues. Most morgues and hospitals no longer exist. Anecdotally, I have friends in Gaza, and I worked in Gaza a long time, of course. I have friends in Gaza whose families were completely obliterated in Israeli airstrikes, but are not counted among the official count of the dead because their bodies were never recovered from the rubble. Also, anecdotally, I had contact with people who you would hear from sporadically, and then you just stopped hearing from them at all. We don't know what happened to them. So I think it's far, far higher than the official count. I would not be surprised if it is in the hundreds of thousands of dead. I think neither
that
Hamas
is the estimate,
or Israel
right?
has
Last we heard it was like 300,000
numbers. Hamas, because they were largely able to protect themselves in the tunnels while leaving the civilian population exposed, and Israel for the obvious reason that they are trying to downplay the numbers of dead in the genocide. But I have no doubt that the numbers are much, much higher than the official figures.
And that's the truth. That's the hard truth that we have to live with, that we funded this. Our tax dollars are paying for it. Well, at the same time, tax dollars are being used to shut down the voices that advocate for this.
Off the phone with President Trump. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Here in New York City, a Columbia undergraduate student was detained by ICE agents early Thursday morning at her off-campus residence. The agents gained entry to the residential building by pretending to be police looking for a missing child. The student, Omara Agayeva, posted about her arrest early in the morning on Instagram saying, quote, DHS illegally arrested me, please help. She was released just hours later following a meeting between New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani and President Trump. Mamdani posted on social media, quote, just got off the phone with President Trump in our meeting earlier. I shared my concerns about Columbia student Almina Agayeva, who was detained by ICE this morning. He's just informed me she will be released imminently. During Mamdani's meeting with Trump, he also requested 4 other cases in New York be dropped. Those of Mahmoud Khalil.
Does Mamdani have the Epstein files? Did he decode the Epstein files? What's going on here?
Seo Chung, Mohsen Madawi, and Laka Korja. This is Columbia University President.
Is Mamdani now the second tail wagging the dog?
We are all so relieved that our student,
How did he do this?
has been released from federal custody. Let me give you some details about what happened this morning. Shortly after 6 a.m., 5 federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security, without any kind of warrant, entered an off-campus Columbia residential building. The agents gained entry by stating they were police searching for a missing child. They made their way to the apartment of the student they were targeting with the same story. Our security cameras captured the agents in the hallway showing pictures of the alleged missing child. Once inside the apartment, it became clear they had misrepresented themselves. A public safety officer arrived, asked multiple times for a warrant, which was not produced, and asked for time to call his boss, which was not given. The agents took our student. This was a frightening and fast-moving situation and utterly unacceptable for our students and staff. We started work immediately to gain her release. We are so grateful for the help and support we got from the mayor and the governor. Let me be clear. Misrepresenting identity and other facts to gain access to a residential building is a breach of protocol. All law enforcement agencies are obligated to follow established legal, ethical standards. Let me also add, nobody in our administration has ever provided any assistance to DHS or ICE as regards arresting or taking any of our students. Quite the opposite. We have labored often intensively behind the scenes to see them supported.
That was Colombia President Eli Aguilera describing, that was Colombia President Claire Shipman responding to the arrest of Eli Aguilera, the detention of her. She didn't release a video talking about Mayor Mamdani's request for the 4 other students to have their cases dropped. We're going to speak with Columbia graduate Mohsen Madawi, one of the people who wasn't a Columbia student. La Concordia is still in detention almost a year after participating in pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia. But first, we're going to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Prem Thacker, political correspondent and columnist for Zeteo News. On Thursday, he reported on the dizzying sequence of events in the arrest and the release of Eli. Prem, can you respond to what took place yesterday? Using false pretenses, saying they were New York police, apparently, this is ICE, to get into Columbia's residential housing, and using a picture of a 5-year-old child to say they were looking for a missing person?
Thank you both for having me. Yes, when you lay it out, it's as shocking as it sounds. And I'll tell you what, when I was first made aware of it, I was getting flashbacks to when I was first flagged of Mahmoud Khalil's taking almost a year ago. As you say, the sort of dizzying nature of it was descriptive of it. At first, it was very clear to me, based on different accounts from sources, that something awry had gone on with how DHS had sought to breach this Columbia building. Claire Shipman, the president, very quickly, as she announced it, had said that there were some false pretenses being had in how the agents had tried to get in. And even over the course of the following hours, before Shipman made that subsequent announcement in the evening that you described, many sources were describing to me the sense that something was wrong, that the agents had impersonated officers, that they were there pretending to be doing something they weren't. And I just want to underscore something that is important, I think, for viewers to understand. Right now, the Department of Homeland Security's budget, its very bloated budget, is at stake because of massive public horror at its acts, including the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. In that time, this is how DHS is choosing to behave. They are allegedly impersonating officers, pretending to be looking for a missing child, all to get into a university building to detain someone. And then, I might add, apparently lying about it. Because when we asked DHS about this, they explicitly said our agents did not and would never impersonate NYPD officers. And yet Claire Shipman, the president of Columbia, is saying, and based on security camera footage, that these agents did in fact impersonate police. So this is how DHS is behaving, even while their budget is at stake. And if that is the case, what does that tell you as an American about how DHS takes your concerns?
And Prem, what can you tell us in terms of this involvement of Mayor Mamdani in getting Trump to release Eli Aguilera?
Yes, and so one thing that should be underscored, and I'm sure this will be talked about more with Mohsen as well, is that yesterday was a remarkable expression from city officials, from city council folks to members of Congress in New York City to, of course, Zoran Mamdani. That was very concerted, very synchronized in expressing condemnation to this arrest. And that also included, of course, Columbia's strong response. They were very outwardly insistent on how they were legally supporting Eli, something that they didn't always express with previous detentions. And so all of that culminated in Zoran Mamdani's surprise afternoon visit to Washington, D.C., which coincided with this arrest, funnily enough, I suppose, where he was visiting Donald Trump to pitch a housing project, a very ambitious housing project that he could request Donald Trump's support in. During that meeting is when Zoran Mamdani also expressed his concerns about the arrest of Eli, as well as you mentioned, the ongoing cases against Mahmoud Khalil, Yonso Chung, Lika Cordia, who is, of course, still in detention, and then Mohsen Madawi. Minutes later, after that meeting, Mamdani gets a phone call from Trump saying that Eli will be imminent released. And then moments after that, Eli posts on her Instagram story saying she's freed. And so that instantaneous reaction by Donald Trump to go ahead and make a phone call to release Eli is remarkable, not just because of how quickly that was able to be done, but because it really puts a thumb in the face of DHS, who,
It does.
you know, lied in order to breach a Columbia University campus building to detain someone. And all for that decision to be quickly flipped is remarkable because it shows the power of opposition, but also how loose and flippant these arrests are and how maybe unnecessary they are.
So let's go to one of the people who Mayor Mamdani raised. In addition to calling for the release of Ellie, which happened immediately, Mayor Mamdani called for the dismissal of cases against the Columbia student, now graduate, Mahmoud Khalil, Yunseo Chung, Mohsen Madawi, who, like Yunseo Chung and Mahmoud Khalil, and Lekha Kordia, who was involved with pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia, were all jailed. The question is, did Columbia intervene in those cases? Mohsen Madawi is now a graduate student at Columbia School of International Affairs, CIPA. Mohsen, if you can talk about your response to what happened yesterday. There was mass protest. Hundreds of people came out to protest Ellie's arrest and the shock of that, but also who President Shipman is willing to talk about and who and intervene on behalf of and who she isn't.
Good morning, Amy, and thank you for having me. This highlights the serious hypocrisy and discrimination that Columbia University has. I'm glad that the president, Claire Shipman, has shared that she is thrilled and relieved for the release of Ellie, as she should. And she should also check on her, meet with her, offer her with the support, legal support, psychological support, and financial support after this terror. But let's be clear, Columbia has participated in allowing this to happen. And that's because they have failed to stand up for their students, for me, for Mahmoud, for Yunsu, and for Ranjana, and for Lekha as well. And this what we see, DHS coming back to Columbia Residential because Columbia University administration did not have the backbone, in fact, to file any lawsuits against the Trump administration for violating basic rights. And now, yes, she is free, but will Columbia University file a lawsuit based on this scam that DHS have done? Where is the accountability in this? In addition to this, Amy, I want the viewers to ask the question, why students are protesting at the streets, not inside campus? And the reason is because the university administration itself has participated in destroying and in deteriorating the democratic practices here. Free speech, they chilled the speech on campus to the point that the students feel more safe being under the risk of being detained or attacked by ICE or police outside of campus because the university has cracked down against the pro-Palestine movements and has made an example of more than 100 students between suspension and expulsion. This is the chilling effect that the university administration and the dirty work that it is doing. I love my university, and that's the reason why I chose to come to Columbia. But what the senior administration is doing and the hypocrisy that we are seeing, when I was released, there was not a video, there was not a word that says I'm thrilled and relieved, and there has not been any attempt to reach out to me and to offer me direct support by the senior administration. This is an issue, might see like a micro issue, but this is actually what the Trump administration intended to do, which is to fracture liberal institutions and turn the administrations against their students. And they have succeeded because the Columbia administration and many other administrations have capitulated and have made deals with the Trump administration.
The impact on the student body, especially the graduate students, given that such a large percentage, I've heard as many as 40% of graduate students at Columbia are international students from other countries. The impact of this continued repression of Columbia against dissent by students?
The impact is huge, and when we talk about 40%, it is more than 1/3 of the university, and we're talking about 14,000 students roughly. I was in DC yesterday, and the shock wave of this, or the wave shock of this terror that ICE have brought to campus, triggering so many students who were here when many other students were detained on campus, has actually chilled, like, it has scared many students. And my phone was like literally tens of messages that are coming to me from international students and from actually students who are citizens, either checking on me if I am okay because they have not disclosed the name first, or asking for legal resources because they are afraid to leave their apartments and campus, the international students. And the chilling effect is real because I see it in classes. Even when I speak, like especially when I speak with my fellow students who are international, about their mind, about their way of thinking, they are afraid to write their beliefs on papers because they don't trust the university that it would keep those papers and their thoughts away from the government. This is the chilling speech.
Masa Madawi, we want to thank you for being with us. He is a Columbia University graduate student today. He was jailed when he was a Columbia undergraduate student, came from the occupied West Bank, as was Mahmoud Khalil, who also graduated but was jailed after pro-Palestinian protests. And Laka Khorgia still is in jail. She's not a student, but she protested
still in jail in Texas.
The policies of Columbia University at the encampment, and she remains in a Texas ICE jail after almost a year. I want to thank you, Mohsen, for being with us. I'm Prem Thacker, political correspondent and columnist for Zateo News.
That's insane. Being detained for a whole year by ICE has to be intentional torture.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube.
It is nothing but intentional
torture.
Turn
on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And
all for speaking up against Israel's crimes in Gaza. You know, that's what this is all about, really. When it comes down to it. Oh yeah, Texas mentioned. Kamala Harris endorses Jasmine Crockett, Harris County. That's all y'all know. I guess. Is this the nail in the coffin? I don't know if that's a good thing or not. We'll find out. Anyways, more babies, please. Hold on. What else does how many work? Yeah, let's go with the babies.
Governments and a long list of highly influential people around the world really want you to have children, and they are seemingly pulling out all the stops to make it happen. Dozens of countries like Australia, France, and even certain states in the USA have tax incentives for families with children, other policies like subsidized childcare, several others offer years of paid parental leave, gift baskets,
what's the young child tax
healthcare
credit?
support, and when that hasn't worked, some countries like South Korea, Singapore, and Russia have been even more direct by offering cash payments for newborns, sometimes even going as far as having compounding payouts for every additional child after the first.
First child. Baby bonus cash gift. Huh. First step grant, $5,000. Parent saving not required. Maximum government co-matching, $4,000. You're telling me you can get $20,000 for having one child? That's crazy, because in the U.S. it would cost you $20,000 to have one child. That's how much the hospital bill would be, basically, if you don't have insurance.
First, as it's become clear the carrot alone isn't moving the needle, several governments, including our own, have started playing around with ideas like additional taxes exclusively for single people and childless couples. Going even further, China has started taxing ham holsters in a last-ditch attempt to get people to have some damn babies by any means necessary. These efforts are collectively costing regular taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars every year, which does raise the important question: why are we doing this? Why are
Man,
we pushing
it's
so
too
hard
expensive
to
to buy
make
this
people make
condom.
babies?
Guess
Well,
we're
there
just
are
gonna have
actually
to
a
wing
few
it.
arguments that get thrown around, as well as some questionable motivations that we will address later. But the overwhelming alarm bell that is being sounded right now is that if we don't get down to it, we are going to have a demographic collapse. There will be too many old people and not enough young people to support them either directly through physical assistance or indirectly through taxes, spending, or investments to fund their retirement programs. It does admittedly sound pretty concerning, especially for most of you watching who are statistically in the age group that is going to be hit by these demographic changes the hardest. But if you then think about it a little bit more, these arguments just raise even more questions, like, well, why are some countries like Switzerland going in the opposite direction and trying to legislate a hard cap on their population? Closer to home, it might be a bit hard for a lot of you watching to stomach the idea that we just need more young people, as youth unemployment and underemployment skyrockets. And then there is the most existential question of all. Is this current obsession with natalism a tacit admission that our whole system has turned into some kind of Ponzi scheme that only works if we have a constant supply of people entering the bottom to support the people at the top?
That's how capitalism works, yes.
A baby bonus.
You need
China
an exploited
now
class.
offers cash to families with kids under the age of 3.
Handing out baby bonuses last year and says it's already boosted staff births.
Gen Z not working shit jobs
choosing not to have children.
is destroying capitalism.
Is now illegal in Russia.
Birth control that was once tax-free, well, it's now taxed.
Switzerland is going to the polls to vote on whether they should cap the country's population at 10 million people.
Okay, so before we dive into personal and societal trade-offs of having or not having children, we first need to address some of the hypocritical ironies coming from a lot of the biggest voices on this issue. The demographic collapse problem has become a central talking point, especially amongst the regular suspects of big tech. Sam Altman, Jeff Bezos, and Jack Ma have all explicitly given interviews or published their thoughts on the threats posed by depopulation. Going even further, Peter Thiel and Elon Musk have both highlighted the problem as one of the most immediate threats facing humanity.
Peter Thiel wants more kids around because that way he can get a young boy blood transfusion.
There are not enough people. I can't emphasize this enough. There are not enough people.
Now, in Musk's defense, he is doing his part to single-handedly correct
Oh,
this
wait, he
issue.
wasn't invited
And
to the
Thiel
island,
is,
never mind.
at best, indifferent to humanity continuing in the first place.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But anyway, the point is that all of these people are going to great lengths to warn us about the dangers of not having enough young people entering the workforce, while simultaneously betting hundreds of billions of dollars that they can replace the same workforce with AI. Now, you might personally be skeptical about the promises of AI, and you might also personally think that the threat of a demographic collapse is real. But if this technology is going to do what these people claim it is going to do, not having enough people should be the least of our problems, right? Now, the ironies that come up in this debate don't stop there, and we will get to the true threat of a demographic collapse at the end. But in the meantime, you should probably consider the 3 other big motivations that might also explain why these people have become so obsessed with natalism. The first is that naturally, a lot of powerful, wealthy, and influential groups want to make sure that they have a stable supply of workers, customers, and debtors. More people in a market on average means more economic activity in a way that is especially good for business owners.
We need more people in debt.
In particular, have already reached every single user they possibly can. So the only way to get more Amazon Prime members, Grok edgelords, or Palantir database entries is to have more children and a growing population. The same fear is being bloated in these articles around a shrinking population's ability to bear the burden of rising global debt. Now, of course, there is an element of truth to this. National debt in almost every advanced economy around the world has increased significantly, and a big tailwind behind that debt has been supporting old age social programs like pensions and carers. If the population shrinks, it means that this debt burden will need to be lifted by a smaller base of taxpayers, and this is a very serious issue. But it's also a bit ironic coming largely from the people that own a majority of that government debt in the first place. The solution being presented is for more working class people to make the sacrifices needed to raise children as some kind of sacrifice to the economic machine god without addressing some logical alternatives like less government spending to subsidize their businesses or, just more effective taxation. Now, to play devil's advocate, maybe the solution is some combination of all of these, but at the very least, it is irresponsible to ignore the other two and conclude that the solution is just more manpower. Now, that alone doesn't sound like a great motivation to change government policy around families, but having a constant supply of debtors is just the first reason. It gets worse. So it's time to learn how money works to find out why having more kids is being presented as a solution to all of our problems.
What if life and not war? Nah, could be the U.S.
This video is sponsored by
We need more bodies to go to war.
Do you want to know where we get a good amount of our footage? Or click the
Ahead.
link in
Oh,
the
thank
description.
you.
So having a stable supply of people to buy their products and to pay back their debt is one thing, but the second major unspoken motivation is to have a stable supply of workers. If there are more people competing for the same job, then businesses can normally get away with paying less, demanding more, and experiencing less staff turnover because nobody wants to lose their job. Steven Sinofsky, a former Microsoft Windows chief, and Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, both said this quiet part out loud in interviews stating that human workers were going to be at a premium. In basic economic terms, if a business wants to produce something, it needs some combination of the four factors of production, capital, land, entrepreneurship.
In bombing news, Israel's already up bombing Lebanon right now. So, that's going on.
And labor. You need investment into tools and processes, you need land to operate on, you need business leadership to come up with ideas and make strategic decisions, and you need workers to actually put everything into action. Naturally, the more limited the supply is of any of these four factors, the more expensive it will become in the process. Venture capitalists and wealthy investors largely have the market for these three factors cornered, but labor belongs to the individual. If there is not enough workers, then the value of labor will increase relative to these other factors. In plain
As it
English,
should.
if finding enough manpower becomes the limiting resource in most business operations, then those businesses will need to start paying more for that manpower.
Your labor
Now,
is
obviously,
incredibly
to the people that
valuable.
make most of their money by
None of this happens without labor.
owning these other three factors of production, this is a terrifying prospect. Now, I can't believe I'm going to be doing this twice in one video, but to play devil's advocate again, some people in particular, like Mark Andreessen, a major venture capitalist, have used this idea to advocate for the value of AI. In most of his press on the issue, he has effectively said that running out of workers would cripple major industries, especially those supporting the elderly. But if AI can replace or leverage that work, then it won't be such an immediate issue. It's obviously a business-first mindset, but it is, at the very least, logically coherent.
Man, when we get old,
Now,
they're
we
going to
can't
try and
leave
have
behind the
AI
other
take
major
care of
voices on
us?
this issue.
Fuck.
But one possible theory is that on one hand, they obviously all have a vested interest in developing AI technologies that could replace or augment human workers, but if that doesn't work out the way they are hoping, it would be nice to have a stable supply of good old-fashioned human labor as a backup plan to keep their businesses going. The argument that we are running out of workers also conveniently supports policies like skilled worker visas that became a bit of a political sticking point last year. These tech companies in particular have benefited greatly from programs like H-1B visas that let companies employ expat workers on the condition that they remain employed by the company. This has introduced more competition into the already saturated market for entry-level tech workers, but it also has the convenient side effect that the people working on these visas are dependent on their company to stay in the country, so they are far less likely to negotiate for better pay, benefits, or threaten to leave their role because they can't leave their role. A paper published by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that on average, one additional H-1B worker in a firm crowded out 1.5 other workers at that same firm. Now, skilled immigration is a whole separate issue, but it does clearly demonstrate what you probably already knew, which is that big companies want a market with lots of workers, all competing for a small selection of jobs because that maximizes their negotiating power. Now, where those workers come from has a lot to do with the third hidden motivation that might help explain this new obsession with birth rates. I don't want to dwell on it too much, because it is outside the confines of business, economics, and the job market, but it would be irresponsible to not at least acknowledge that there are some ideological motivations behind this push as well. Having lots of children pairs well with traditional family values, gender roles, family planning debates, and of course, having the population of the right kind of people. How much the big voices on this topic actually believe in this stuff is hard to say, but if it supports their ultimate goals, they are clearly happy to have it on their side in policy debates. So yeah. Maintaining a constant supply of workers, consumers, debt payers, all in the correct cultural package clearly isn't something that normal people are considering when choosing to have a family. And they aren't exactly great reasons to be tailoring policy so heavily towards encouraging people to have kids, especially if they can't responsibly afford it. Again, more on that soon. But Just because there are bad motivations mixed into this debate, it doesn't necessarily mean that the threats posed by changing demographics aren't to be taken seriously. They do, however, need to be looked at pragmatically. Here in America, we are
But wow, it's amazing he had to express the underlying racist and classist undertones of this movement. Yeah.
not as far along in this fertility trend.
I mean,
as
if it's not obvious to most people that, you know, a lot of the times when it's these, like, you know, extremely wealthy and also tech bros, it's some actual 1488 shit. Like that's what they're talking about. They're not really saying that we need to repopulate the earth, or that we need to we need to increase our own population for the benefits of the economy. They want to be the ones to repopulate because they are white.
Other countries in Western Europe, and we are a long way behind the true outliers in Asia. Taiwan, China, South Korea, and Singapore now have birth rates less than half of the replacement rate of roughly 2.1 births per woman. South Korea in particular has a birth rate less than half of ours here in America, and we are already told that we have a problem. This is to show that things can still go a lot further.
Why is China on the list twice?
The trend has been towards fewer children across the world.
I want to emphasize the xenophobia,
at the same time as other changes that are very important
China's
to
on there
consider in
twice.
context. Here in America, our labor force participation rate has been declining since 1999. Youth employment in most of Europe remains very high. And even in places like South Korea, with what many consider
Taiwan,
disastrously low birth rates,
Damn it,
the
you got me.
competition amongst young workers for entry-level jobs is unbelievably competitive. The point across all of these economies...
Why is it so long?
I got this!
What the fuck? Hold on, I gotta mess with these. So give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. That was so loud. Okay, that one's not too loud. Alright, that one's good. I like that one, actually. Damn! How long is it? You gonna hit me again with it? Damn. Okay. Alright, that one's good. I should be able to save these. It's 5, 6. Alright, never mind.
Is that
moving on.
If we really are running out of young workers, we are doing a terrible job of using.
Oh, and they call it speed ramping. I didn't know they called it speed ramping. Is this in my notifications? Yeah. Hassan Piker confirms upcoming stream with trending TikTok former CIA agent John Kirikow. He said, Ostenok said I'm gonna speed ramp the fuck out of their conversation, just like their TikTok edits. But also, I did read this in the speed ramp voice in my head. Chick Winger's nephew. Janky Garga is going to interview the CIA agent that's trending on TikToks.
Ones we already have.
Oh yeah, I forgot to. There you go.
Now, there are structural problems like skills gaps, people taking early retirement, opting out of the workforce entirely, or whatever the reason is given for this logical irony. But whatever the true cause may be, throwing more people at the problem is not a sustainable solution. Even for immediate issues like funding pension systems, the problem is that if birth rates continue to decline and life expectancy continues to increase, there will be more people taking out.
What happens when 2 clip industrial complexes meet? I want to see the entire interview just speed ramped. Yeah, that would be. I don't know. I guess my brain would partially melt.
Than putting money in. So either the young people will be forced to contribute more, or the retirees will have to make do with less. But if there really were no other solutions, then this problem itself is an acknowledgement that the whole system only works if there is a continual supply of new people at the bottom to support the people at the top. And with that simple breakdown, you might be able to see why some people have just called this a generational Ponzi scheme.
Brother, it's just capitalism. Capitalism is a Ponzi scheme. Only the few get rich. Everybody else is the poverty class. Okay? If you think you're making like $40,000 a year and you're making it, like you think you finally made it, you're part of the poverty class still, because there's motherfuckers out there making billions of dollars off of your labor, off of a collective effort from your labor, from everybody's labor. That's the Ponzi scheme, man. I don't know like where how Money Works has gone lately, but he used to be a lot more Marxist leaning. I don't know. Maybe he gave up on the idea.
But the thing is, there are other solutions that should be at least considered alongside directly paying people to have children. For you individually,
I'm sorry, what was it? Russia doing what?
Should be at least considered alongside directly
Russia paying schoolgirls $1,200 to have children.
Paying people to have children. For you individually, you should probably assume that you will need to self-fund your retirement. Even if you're wrong, it's better to have a nest egg and not need it than to need it and
is that why Bill Gates was with the Russian women? Russian women?
Have it. On a larger scale, if workers really are becoming a rare commodity, we should try to treat them as such. Making it easier for them to access the right skills and engage with a job market that isn't openly hostile will do a lot more for getting people into roles than just making more people. Additionally, when it comes to funding support for people in their old age, the arithmetic doesn't need to rely on just increasing the total number of people paying into the system. It can also come from just receiving more from the people who can afford it most. Now, of course, the arguments around more effective taxation on the ultra-wealthy individuals won't be new to any of you watching. But when this becomes a problem of either getting the same money from more people or getting more money from a small group of people, you might be able to see why the same group of wealthy individuals is supporting the former option rather than the latter. One of the most frustrating things about this issue is that a lot of people actually do want to have children, but simply can't afford to raise them with the quality of life they would want for those children. For some, having a family has become a status symbol, quietly indicating that people have the means to forgo some aspect of their
we just saw how Block cashed in on AI after firing all its workers. Yeah, well, hold on. What is Block? Is that H&R Block or something, or like what is that? What are they? What would you say they do here? Oh yeah, but also I added your own file. Y'all can do this. Check this out. Go in here. Hit him with the Rat Pack. Yeah, that works.
They with the Rat Pack. Hit him with the chopper, that's the rat trap. Find them in that trash bag off the interstate.
I did add that recently.
And cover the rising costs associated with raising children. For everybody else that is still thinking about the decision logically, their mind isn't going to be swayed one way or another by some tax credits or a baby bonus. So go and watch this video next to find out what is stopping us from getting rid of the real barriers to people starting a family. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep on learning how money works.
How are we going to keep this economy going? Oh, I got it. Oh, shit. What's the Kalshi on the war?
Prediction markets. They are websites that, for some reason, exist. When you go to one, you'll find an infinite scroll of real-world events and their possible outcomes on which you can bet your hard-earned inheritance. Events like who will Donald Trump talk to in February?
What?
Logan Paul first edition Charizard sale price? Will Jesus Christ return before 2027? And when the U.S. will strike Iran? But to this unholy list of questions, I'd like to add one of my own. Why is this allowed?
Yes. Thank you. Oh, it's a Jack Dorsey financial tech company? What do they do? Like, they just... I don't know. Why?
In the rapidly evolving genus of prediction markets, two species stand above them all: Polymarket and Kalshi. These companies are strikingly similar beasts who together are largely responsible for the recent prediction markets boom. In just the last year, they've partnered with news agencies and sports leagues, launched massive ad campaigns, and each reached valuations of about $10 billion while processing over $1 billion from users every week. Folks, it's prediction markets world, and we're living in it.
Prediction markets are the future.
Predictions markets, very hot right now.
Google announcing it will integrate Kalshi's data into their search results.
The NHL just became the first major U.S. pro league to strike licensing deals with prediction market platforms.
An everyday person could liquidate their 401k and bet it on how many times the Chipotle CEO is going to say carne asada in their.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you advising people to liquidate their 401k and fucking bet it? Bet it away. You too can be a billionaire. You will not die poor. Not in this economy.
Prediction markets.
There's so much opportunity in here. Come on, just get in. The water's warm.
Going to be the next.
We're just getting started.
Boyfriend from his salary.
I've been getting into prediction markets, and I think more people should be involved.
Oh my god!
It's gonna go up. I'm locked in. No!
Ah!
Yo, this is emotional.
But prediction markets weren't always the multi-billion-dollar addiction apps that your husband checks on his phone immediately post-climax. In fact, prediction markets got their start. As
Vegas doesn't care if we come anymore as a more perfect union. Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Faculty members at the University of Iowa created experimental
we can just bet online on everything.
To discover what we could learn from letting
they
people
just call
bet
it prediction
like
markets. It's not betting. It's
the Commodity
prediction
Futures
market.
Trading Commission, which oversees pretty much all trading, let them run the experiment so long as they kept the money dial turned down to for non-profit/academia purposes. But
so the
now
rule
these
house
things
always
are most
wins
certainly
still stands when the house is digital. Yeah.
In fact, they're mucho profit.
Did you see this coming?
I mean, it's going to be like 9 out of 10 times, right? The house is going to win.
Coming is full of shit. I'll tell
Of
you
course,
that
somebody's going to end up
so
getting
small,
rich off
there's
of
nothing
it.
going on in the
But
background.
that's the attraction. Nobody would use it if nobody was getting rich, right?
Fantastic newsletter on prediction markets, if I do say so myself. Dustin explained to me.
But it's weird how the rich people continue to get more rich.
Markets is so potentially valuable in the eyes of the world's beta-blocked VC bros.
It looks like the
Information
good
is
Aaron
money, right?
Parnas.
Information is super valuable. The more information you can have about
Who,
world
Dan
events
Toomey?
and what's to come, that information is
This
power.
guy?
Like if you can tap into that information, then you have something. And again, this is why major financial interests are really getting into this and really find this interesting.
Unsure if
The major
that's a
financial
compliment.
interests Dustin is talking about here are, among other things, investment banks and hedge funds, a few of which are hiring traders for prediction markets, titans of traditional news media, Venmo, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Donald Trump Jr., who's an advisor to Polymarket and Kalshi, and his
Not
daddy,
Giannis.
whose social media platform is making their own prediction market, Truth Predict. The fundamental argument for prediction markets' usefulness is that they tap into the so-called
He did
wisdom
not get
of
the
crowd,
pronunciation
turning
notes.
them into an extremely accurate predictive tool. The idea is that if you get a large number of people betting on something, you're going to
That means
approximate
normal
the best
Aaron
possible
is
guess at
bad?
the outcome.
Yeah,
With modern prediction markets specifically, this has to do
Yeah.
with the sheer number of people betting, but also
Actually,
the
I don't know
types
what
of
Aaron
people
Parnas
betting.
looks like.
Experts and
I
people
don't know
with
that I
inside
want to now.
information could be incentivized to get
I'll
in
just
on the
imagine he
action.
looks like
These
this.
traits were immediately noted by economists in the early 2000s who noticed that the Iowa electronics market was actually predicting political outcomes better than most experts and pollsters. We also saw an example of this in the 2024 presidential election when traditional forecasting methods had the race as a toss-up, but prediction markets saw it as a clear Trump dub. And it's this kind of stuff that has Kalshi claiming their predictions are as good as Wall Street, and as Polymarket CEO Shane Copeland feeling confident enough to talk a big game to this immortal news elf.
And how accurate is it?
It's the most accurate thing we have as mankind right now, until someone else creates some sort of super crystal ball.
But perhaps you're wondering how the Benny Blanco of Peter Thiel's got away with running this multi-billion-dollar company. I thought prediction markets were supposed to be non-profit. And in Iowa, what happened? Compliance.
What?
It can be a scary word. Don't matter if you're a chief
commercial?
information security
Get
in
outta
this
here.
video. Now, let's get back to it. Now, quick lesson on legalized gambling for you. Here in the United States, if you're going to create a gambling product, first off, great idea. You're going to become a trillionaire. But second of all, you're going to need to hire a high-functioning team of cold, heartless lawyers to machete their way through jungles of red tape to launch said gambling product. It took the sports betting industry years and years of lobbying and groundwork to launch their products, because gambling is regulated by the states, not the federal government, so they had to do the whole process state by state. And they've still got 11 more states to go. But Kalshi and Polymarket,
That's it?
these cats work
Shit.
smarter, not harder. They looked at everything you have to do to legally launch a gambling product and said, but what if it wasn't a gambling product? Dustin, how's this shit not illegal?
That's the big question. That's the question everybody's grappling with right now. It's legal because it's federally regulated under the Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
Now, if you'll remember, the good people over at the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, who oversee futures and other derivatives trading,
Poly market can operate in the States?
Not juicy enough. Excellent. Basically, prediction markets like Kalshi and Poly market consider themselves to be closer to the IO electronics market than DraftKings. By this logic, their argument to the CFTC is that what they offer isn't a gambling product, but instead markets to trade futures contracts on real-world events that have meaningful economic consequences.
We're a neutral, transparent financial market. We're like the New York Stock Exchange.
Right. What is the difference between gambling and prediction markets?
There hasn't been a single financial derivative that has been set up in the US or otherwise that hasn't been called gambling at the beginning.
Now, we're starting to get into some sticky legal territory here, and if I'm keeping it 100, I do not 100%.
What if world events were NFTs? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's what it is, right?
And whenever that happens, I'm always sure to call up a professor of business law at Seton Hall Law School.
I'm a professor of business law at Seton Hall Law School.
Seton Law School?
Home
of
I mean, he kind of does look like, you know, if Satan was personified, I suppose.
Basketball players.
Glenn, what's your mascot? What's your mascot you got?
Yeah, lawyers are devilish, yes.
But
you don't know. We'll edit that part out. So, home of the
Pirates.
There we go. I tasked old Ilya Balin here with translating the legalese by which Polymarket and Kalshi argue they're permitted to operate their platforms across the country.
The instruments that prediction markets use are styled as derivatives, and they can be styled as swaps. They can also potentially be styled as futures or options, but irrespective of which derivative they're styled as, once they're characterized as a derivative, they, subject to some considerations, can be listed on a derivatives exchange. This goes back to late 1800s, early 1900s. A major exchange.
Prediction market was like identify as not a casino. Yeah, that's basically what's going on here.
Some real trading in grain. The years of the Civil War stuffs. It also started trading what are called futures. A certain grade of a commodity at a certain price at some future date. And these were the first exchange traded.
Yeah, that's pretty derpy face. That.
His words were going in my mouth and up to my brain with a speed and complexity I was frankly uncomfortable with. I needed to reestablish control. I just want to let you know, no matter how hard you try, I'm right there with you.
I love it.
I know it might not look like it, but mentally, I'm exactly where you are.
I like walking odd woods, and company is good in them.
I'm in that woods with you. I'm in that woods with you, brother. If it's economic function and utility, that's the key to legalization here. How come I'm looking on prediction markets and there's a 5% chance that Jesus is going to come back?
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
Thank you.
The explanation is drift. The explanation is regulatory drift. And
what does that mean?
You start at a place where something makes a lot of sense. And then circumstances evolve and products, financial products, as all these evolutions are taking place, they change. At each step, the new one sort of resembles the status quo, but the steps get further and further from that core, including
imagine your boss bet on you would quit and made your job so unbearable you do within the gains window.
Regulatory system was designed to serve.
That's what I'm saying. With like war on, like the war on Iran.
Again,
like when if there's a prediction market on when it starts.
I think my problem with Kalshi has been they tell us that none of what they're doing.
Gajillionaires just gotta put their money on yes.
So under the CFTC, everything has
and how soon it starts, and then they win depending on
event contracts. It has to have an economic consequence.
What levers they pull, I guess.
So in that world, everything has an economic consequence. I can invent an economic consequence for everything. But yeah, there's this line of things that are really important markets, Fed interest rate cuts, the price of Bitcoin. These are things that are like very easy to diagnose. They have an economic consequence in the world. All these other things are more just for betting and speculation. And again, like we have these things because there hasn't been a whole lot of thought. Kalshi insists everything's an event. Everything can be traded, and there you go. You get everything in the world. And again, the CFTC has just kind of said, sure, it's all an event. We're not going to stop you.
And amongst the events that take place daily in our world, there is none bigger than sports, which dominate prediction market volume and make them seem pretty gambly. Kalshi in particular has made a big push
BP
in
oil
sports, which has
betting
been a
on
huge
oil
source
black.
of growth. The number's constantly changing, but as of late 2025, about 90% of the fees Kalshi was collecting on trades came from sports. Trades like taking Los Angeles L over New York K in pro basketball.
Who could
Clearly,
that be?
day and
It's
night,
just the
from
basketball
gambling on
shoe.
the Los Angeles Lakers to beat the New York Knicks on DraftKings. And if you're thinking, well, gee, Dan, Kalshi's argument for this not being sports gambling is feeling pretty thin, well, when they first launched sports contracts, they literally ran ads saying sports betting is now legal in all 50 states. Kalshi has now distanced themselves from this language, but come on. Let's zoom out from the nitty-gritty and activate common sense mode here. The vast majority of people
How would
think that
Jesus
sports
go about
contracts are
flipping the
gambling and
tables
not
on our
financial
show
contracts.
prediction?
God damn it, I even found a guy who's pretty much a professional prediction markets trader, and even he
Top
thinks it's
100
ridiculous
Kalshi
these
trader,
things
wow.
aren't classified as gambling.
I'm Kalshi. I got $250,000 and I'm out of cash constantly because there's so much stuff to trade on every single day.
So you've made $250,000 on Kalshi, or that's what you currently have?
Somebody has to win. Somebody for these things to be successful, somebody has to win. Yes. And it's this guy.
Like 550,000 or 560,000 in career earnings there. And I really started in March of 2024. I've been asked by companies to respond to reporters and say that's not gambling. And it's like, well, I don't really believe that. So
I'd cut my losses at $250,000.
If you're
Yeah.
arguing that it's not gambling, you got a tough battle ahead of you. But there's different types of gambling. Like if I'm flipping a coin and calling it, that's
my life-changing kind of money,
skill to
yes.
that, right? It's 50-50. You're right or you're wrong. But something like a poker or prediction markets or the stock markets, there's ways to give yourself an edge.
Number of tweets for Elon.
If you're an idiot, you're probably not going to do well. So you've got to have some level of intelligence.
Idiots are not going to do well in these.
I would recommend if you're an idiot, do not join this unless you want to just lose money for fun.
Ultimately, law has to be about the people.
As,
not the
you know,
leagues.
a fool in his
What's the
money, right?
difference when you open up a wager on the Red Sox game on, say, FanDuel versus Kalshi? Why is one gambling and the other legitimate financial activity that's regulated by the federal government? Because a laywoman can't come up with a good justification for that distinction. I think we're sort of in real
BSK
trouble.
dealer, yeah.
I don't think prediction markets should be banned. I think that there is some value, and I think people should be able to interact with them how they want, but I do think that the regulation around them has to shift.
New correspondent is Kyla Scanlon, an author and economics commentator who recently published an op-ed about the dangers of prediction markets in some rag called the New York Times.
I try to stay away from good and bad as words, but I think the reason it might be something to be cautious about is because of what the platforms incentivize, which is that insider trading. They also have a lot of really questionable markets.
What flavors will jewelry launch?
On whether or not the leader of Iran will be overthrown.
Oh my God!
All of these things that maybe, again, we shouldn't be betting on.
By
And
March
so there's
31st?
Sort of this validation that the mainstream outlets
Hold on, go back to that.
shouldn't be betting on. And so there's sort of this validation that the mainstream outlets are providing to prediction markets when they do partner with them in maybe, again, whether or not the leader of Iran will be.
It was looking pretty high in the middle of January. Note on Middle East markets, the promise of prediction markets is to harness the wisdom of the crowd to create accurate, unbiased forecasts for the most important events to society. That ability is particularly invaluable in gut-wrenching times like today. After discussing with those directly affected by the attacks, who had dozens of questions, we realized that prediction markets could give them the answers they needed in ways TV and X could not. Who's going the long game here? December 31st.
Overthrown. There's markets on all of these things that maybe, again, we shouldn't be betting on. And so there's sort of this validation that the mainstream outlets are providing to prediction markets when they do partner with them and talk about the odds as sort of
Barstool conservatives love the prediction market graphs. Somebody made bank on Venezuela raid per NPR. That's crazy.
Saying that people are wrong for doing this, it makes sense. And I think it ties into the broader issue of financial nihilism, where people feel like they can't get ahead, so they might as well go bet on all of this stuff. But that creates further desensitization.
I hate it here.
So I think you can become more attached to something happening, but becoming more attached to a leader getting overthrown because you have money on the line, I think that psychologically.
Hit 'em with the chopper, that's the rat trap. Find them in that trash bag off the interstate.
And morals are tough, but like that's a tough one to process, right?
Indeed, it seems to me that what these prediction market companies are doing isn't so much capitalizing on their potential economic value, but rather the general chaos of our world, fueled by a never-ending media cycle and the crippling gambling addiction me and the boys developed after parlaying on Aaron Rodgers back in 2011. I mean, this is what happens when you pump your dorky finance product with 100 fluid ounces of VC-backed cash steroids. It's a brass strategy. But will that strategy work out for them in the long run? Seems to be a gamble they're willing to take.
Thought it was just fun. No.
You can bet on that. Casino. For good work, I'm Dan Toomey.
Have you ever placed a Kalshi wager yourself?
No.
Who do you think's going to open for Bad Bunny at halftime? Do you think it's going to be TT Me Pregunto or Ballet Inolvidable?
I'm going to...
That's which song he's going to play first. Shit. Okay. What song do you think Bad Bunny's going to play first at halftime? Is it going to be TT Me Pregunto or Ballet Inolvidable?
I lack expertise in that question. That might not be a market I wager on.
Sounds like TT Me Pregunto.
He was right, yeah. I hope you...
I'll put...
Man, no wonder Dan Toomey hasn't made a video since then. He's rich. On that. He's made it, finally. He made it. Oh, what's the shorts? I don't see the one I like. These are the only Dan Toomey shorts I like here.
All right, next caller.
Hey, Dan. I'm a 1,200-year-old merchandise distributor
Dan Ramsey.
in the Arctic, and I'm in trouble. Right now, I have about $38 billion in debt, and my wife and I...
You have $38 billion in debt?
Yes, it's the way my business functions.
Well, what are you, just giving stuff out to people for free?
Yes.
Okay.
Each year, I distribute about $10 billion worth of toys to children.
Christian children?
Yes.
All right, that's good. Do you earn any form of income at all?
Yeah, in milk and cookies and Christmas spirit.
That's not good.
No, I know. I'm diabetic, and I'm afraid they're going to have to cut off my foot.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Yeah, that fucker's the reason I'm in this mess.
All right, let me tell you something. You're going to get out of this weird charity you've been running right now, and you're going to find a practical job. Okay, that's JAWB. Next thing you're gonna do is gonna move somewhere warmer. Save money on that heating bill, either Knoxville or Bangladesh. And for Christ's sakes, you gotta put down the cookies.
Oh, it's too good.
That was weird. Did he say the Arctic? All right, next caller.
Don't worry, guys. We're gonna make it though. Here's JD.
Do is make you guys Under Donald Trump and Republicans, in just 1 year, the average American has seen $1,700 increase in take-home pay. That is more money in your pocket, and that's what we're here to do, is make you guys more prosperous.
In just 1 year, everybody made $1,700 more than last year. Wait a minute.
American has seen 17.
Hold on. Hold on 1 second. Press exit out. What is the median wage in the U.S.? Oh, $61,000 per year. Hold on, calculator. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Fuck, I'm underpaid? Yeah. Well, a lot of people are. Times. Oh. Okay. So, also, you're under, if you're not getting a 3% raise, which is what this is every year, because, what is the average yearly raise? Yeah, 3 to 4%. So so all he did was take the average wage and multiply it times the average wage increase year over year, 3%, and say, we did that. That's us, man. That wouldn't happen. You're welcome. The 3% you would have got regardless, you're welcome for that, actually. That was us. We did that for you. You're taking credit for things that happen regardless. Or I'm sorry, things that should be happening regardless, because if you're not getting 3%, a 3% raise every year, that's your generous employer making sure that you're not continuing to live further in poverty. 3% is considered the standard. Increases can range from 1 to 5%. If you get a 1% raise, that is a pay cut. You received a pay cut, sir. Because inflation is generally 3%. What is the average yearly inflation rate? Yeah, 3.2, 3.3%. So, if you're not getting a 3% raise every single year, that's a pay cut. But also, leave it to the Trump administration to come in here and say that 3% raise that you got, that was us, actually.
$1,700 increase in take-home pay. That is more money in your pocket, and that's what we're here to do, is make you guys more prosperous. Under Donald Trump and Republicans, in just 1 year, the average American has seen $1,700 increase.
They're taking credit where no credit was due. Amazing. Also, no, I couldn't. I don't know why I didn't put that past.
Why don't you go to the hospital?
This is why you don't go to the hospital, by the way.
This country's so fucked up. They're like, why don't you go to the doctor? Why don't you go to the hospital? Well, today's the reason why. I come here because I'm scared that something's wrong with me. I'm about to have a stroke or a heart attack, and I'm scared to come here just because they hit you with this.
Now he's definitely going to have a stroke and heart attack.
I'm like, you just did basic test on me. Why is it so high? And they're like, well, really, it's 5,000, but they hit me with the, we feel kind of bad for you, so we'll lower it down to 3,000. Just 3,000. Well, thank you so much for that. Other countries get free medical care in hospitals. This is outrageous.
Agreed that it is outrageous. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. Also, this is probably the same guy. You gotta wonder where your money's going. Don't tread on me, but I love cops. Who do you think's gonna tread on you? All right. Where am I? Oh yeah. We're getting back to Iran actually. Israel fighting the urge to sink an American aircraft carrier and blame it on Iran. Yeah, we're here.
Welcome to the We On podcast, where
What?
we explore fascinating stories and ideas
This
from
is his
various
AI
fields.
voice?
5 to 7.
I hate it. Thank you. Go away. Will he or won't he?
The American military has its sights set on Iran once again. We examine the media messages around the story, including one that does not stand up to scrutiny.
Hot off the press,
That
the
Islamic
Listening
Republic
Post.
is a nuclear menace.
More than a friend, a brother.
Brothers in arms and ethno-supremacy. India's prime minister travels to Israel to embrace the Netanyahu government. And spreading the word of a Christian God, hoping it gets them to the political promised land. Brazil and the evangelical influencers looking to take power.
Oh my God.
For more than a week now, the United States has been threatening military action against Iran. Deadlines have been floated, consequences threatened, and yet, at the time of this recording, no shots have been fired,
The end, isn't
missiles
he?
launched, or bombs dropped. The negotiations continue over the future of Iran's nuclear program,
Yeah.
which, if the Trump administration is to be believed, is at the core of this dispute. Not Israel, which has long wanted to take down the leaders of the Islamic Republic, not oil, which Iran has an abundance of, and not the Epstein files, which Donald Trump keeps deflecting attention away from. 20-odd years ago, Americans were told that another oil-rich state in the region, Iraq, posed a clear and present danger. We know how that ended. This time around, Tehran's reply has been telling. The Iranian media, which are mostly state-controlled, have been focusing on the Epstein scandal, reminding the world that one of the reasons that President Trump is talking tough abroad may be because he is under the gun at home.
President Trump is putting the pressure on Iran.
It's going to be a bad day for Iran, very bad.
The administration has been really vague on what its objectives are. The reason for that is they themselves don't know what their objectives are.
A lot of this is that Donald Trump is making it up as he goes along.
I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon.
I think Donald
Projecting
Trump
much?
is a little high on his own supply right now.
So we could be sleepwalking into this conflict that could have potentially huge ramifications, not unlike the Iraq War, and potentially even worse.
If you've been tracking the news on Iran, finding it difficult to get a grip on the story, you are not alone. Between the rhetoric coming out of Washington, the military buildup, the nuclear angle, the latest protests in Tehran, the negotiations taking place in Geneva, and the journalistic tendencies of Western media outlets, news consumers are up against it. And there is a lack of coherence combined with an eerie familiarity in the White House's messaging on the supposed threat that Iran poses, in that Iran's nuclear program has been weaponized, but by Washington, in the same way that Iraq's WMDs, its non-existent weapons of mass destruction, were post 9/11. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin
Trump says he's thinking of putting Republican Senator Ted Cruz on the Supreme Court. An hour ago? Ted and Clarence on yacht trips together. Imagine the storms they'd miss. I'll burn this fucking place down, dude.
Netanyahu has been warning of the impending threat of Iranian nukes for decades.
If this regime were to acquire nuclear weapons, this could presage catastrophic consequences. Time
1996.
He has repeatedly described
Time is running out.
danger as more and more
30
imminent.
years.
It's only a few months, possibly a few weeks,
2012.
before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
One would think Netanyahu
When I was 2,
would
he
have been
warned us
relieved
the
last
first
June,
time.
after the 12-day war that the U.S. and Israel launched on Iran, when President Trump declared that Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions were done for.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Yet,
Hold on, yeah, if they were completely and totally obliterated, how'd they get them back so soon? The straw man is dead. The straw man is back.
there was Trump at the State of the Union address this week, saying the nuclear threat was somehow back.
Starting it all over. We wiped it out and they want to start all over again.
The thing about propaganda, however, it's not supposed to be this confusing.
It is clear that Iran's nuclear program does not pose an imminent threat to anyone. The military dimensions of its nuclear program, according to US intelligence itself, was abandoned several years ago. What it is doing is what we call hedging. It's amassing all the necessary raw materials in order to make a dash for a bomb, should it one day make the political decision to do so. But there is nothing that indicates that Iran
just
has
build
made
the
that
bomb,
political
bro.
decision today.
Iran's nuclear program is being used very
Just say
similarly
that you
to
have
how
it already.
Iraq's supposed WMD program was used in 2002. A supposed threat that is hyped with misinformation. You can have Witkoff say
they're probably a week away from,
because if they did say that they had it, the U.S. would be like, oh well, you know.
Journalists need to say,
never
well,
mind.
how do we know that? How do we
we'll
don't
just
have
chill
intelligence
out.
on
We'll
the
be
ground.
here.
And I think we would find that this is
We'll
just
be outside the door if
empty
you need
rhetoric.
us.
Facts just really don't matter anymore.
What nuclear program are they talking about? That American political commentator Mark Levin, he had written Iranians are going to have a biological and chemical
and biological warheads.
Missiles. Oh, come on. So nuclear
Yeah,
warheads.
at this point, fake it till you make it. I mean, BB has, yeah, for real.
Biological or chemical weapons have come out. It is exactly the scenario that was used for Iraq, and everybody knows it.
They believe today that they must destroy the West. Those nuclear ICBMs aren't aimed for Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. They're aimed for New York and Los Angeles.
No, they're not. They can't even fucking reach over there. What the
Has been
fuck?
going on for at least 3 decades. And the good thing is that on social media, people have woken up. And I said, you are looking for
as if the United States wouldn't have a way to stop a fucking missile launched an entire world away. You're telling me the country and military that is an expertise in missile defense would just sit there and be like, oh no, they fired a missile at us from 3,000 bajillion miles away. I guess it's just gonna hit us. That's not how that works.
an excuse or a justification to attack that country.
Yes, exactly. It's just an
Nevertheless,
excuse to attack the
warhawks
country. That's
seem
all it
to
is.
have the upper hand in
Building
Washington
consent.
and
You know,
the
we're
ear
manufacturing
of
the
White
consent
House.
here.
They are backed by some well-funded, influential elements of the Iranian diaspora. Voices advocating the overthrow of Iran's leaders and the installation of Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the former Shah. That diaspora is in temporary cahoots with an even better funded pro-Israel lobby, which argues that given the recent anti-government protests in Iran, now is the time to strike.
Iran is as weak as we can remember.
The Pentagon would beg to differ, as evidenced by some clearly coordinated leaks this past week to 3 major U.S. news outlets, all of which headlined the risks that an attack on Iran would create.
When these leaks have come out, Donald Trump's been very
not a
fast
good
to
idea.
go up on Truth Social and to say, no, there's nothing to worry about here. This is a complete lie. We have the most powerful military in the world. So I think it's very much a matter of managing that media narrative. But the president has backed himself into a corner in part by laundering this through the media, where the expectation is now he has to strike because he has hyped it up so much.
It's critical for Trump's generals to be able to outline what the risks are.
Attack on Iran as a...
What is more interesting is the scale and the timing of the leak. The fact that every major news outlet came across this information, and the fact that every major news outlet wrote about it because people within the U.S. administration are worried about such a military campaign. So they are choosing to notify the public so that the public could restrain the president.
The leaks are highly significant, given that there is a broad perception in Washington that a war with Iran could be low cost.
Yeah, President Donald Trump's top general is highlighting the potential risks with striking Iran.
We saw that with the June war, the U.S. just went in for a one-and-done strike where he claimed that they obliterated the nuclear program.
Discount
and now
warfare.
Trump has amassed this massive military force, threatening a big war.
If Donald Trump has cranked up tensions over Iran in order to divert attention away from the Epstein files, the poisonous effect those lurid revelations have had on his administration, Tehran refuses to play along. While Western news organizations do seem distracted, focusing on all the military hardware heading for the Middle East, Iranian outlets are keeping the Epstein story.
I hate this guy. Where is he?
Seem distracted, focusing
yeah, that guy right
organizations.
This guy. Every report he's ever done has irritated the hell out of me.
Hardware heading for the Middle East. Iranian outlets are keeping the Epstein story front and center. The Islamic Republic's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has done his part, describing Epstein Island as a symbol of Western decay, framing the Epstein story, for which not a single U.S. political figure has taken the fall, as proof of what he calls the moral collapse of liberal democracy. And social media there is pulling no punches, branding the Trump administration the Epstein regime.
The Iranian media, they thoroughly covered the story. And whenever a new Epstein file is released, they show them to people. And Iran's leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in his recent speech, he also referred to Epstein, that President Trump had links with Epstein.
هرچی درباره فساد اینا شنیده بودیم یک طرف این قضیه این جزیره
Everything we had ever heard about their corruption is one thing.
بدنام و فاسد هم یک طرف اینا
The affair of that morally corrupt island is another
They
altogether.
tell people, look, these are a bunch of perverts, pedophiles, who are now trying to cover their own scandals by opening a new field, which is a war on Iran.
When it comes to the Epstein files, the Iranian government has tried to capitalize on that in its own propaganda efforts against the United States. They made a big deal out of, in these recent rallies for the anniversary of the Iranian Revolution.
اگر این اتفاق ذره‌ایش 1% در ایران اتفاق 1% در ایران اتفاق افتاده بود اون رو پیرهن عثمان می‌کردن و این اتفاقی که
For Trump, whether or not the Epstein files are the main driver for him seeking a war against Iran, that's unclear, but they are definitely trying to capitalize on this in their own propaganda, in their own kind of disinformation efforts.
That's the other thing about propaganda. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, it turns out to be true. Prime Minister Narendra Modi sent a clear signal this past week that India stands with Israel. His visit to the country was just the second by an Indian Prime Minister. The first took place 9 years ago. It was Modi then, too. Tarak Nafa has been following how the trip unfolded.
Narendra Modi's visit this week was a carefully choreographed display of solidarity.
Narendra, my dear friend, these are not just words. I would almost venture to say, more than a friend, a brother.
The Indian Prime Minister was presented with a newly created state honor, and he delivered an address to the Israeli parliament.
They gave him the Trump? They gave him the Trump treatment? Are you serious?
Let us ensure that the friendship between India and Israel remains a source of strength in an uncertain world.
I mean, we're all familiar with the relationship between Israelis and the Indian population. They do not favor the Indian population, but you know, from videos and interactions that we've seen with, like, you know, popular streamers that are of the darker complexion that have gone to Israel that have not been welcomed. You know, this they need their support, I guess.
Ahead of the trip, the Jerusalem Post ran
India, for the better part, is still, you know, a Western influenced country.
Front page welcome for Modi with a hello in Hindi. Television networks in both countries went all in on the celebratory atmosphere.
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने इजराइल जाते ही धूम मचा दी। वहां की सरकार, वहां की संसद, पूरा इजराइल नरेंद्र मोदी के स्वागत में बिछा हुआ है।
I guess as they lose favor with the American public, they have to, you know...
Back in India, opposition politicians and activists criticized the visit. The
establish and reinforce their roots in other demographics.
The account of journalist and author Azad Issa to be withheld in India. Issa has written extensively about New Delhi's ties with Tel Aviv. Those ties now run even deeper as a result of this visit. Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu signed agreements to boost already significant military partnerships and joint weapons manufacturing deals.
But it's always
For
about...
Netanyahu, this visit could not have come at a better time. Israel faces growing international isolation over its genocidal war and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. India's unwavering support for the country allows him to project an image of strength.
You stood so clearly, so morally, so sharply. You stood by Israel.
התייצבת לצד ישראל. You didn't flinch. You didn't waver. You didn't give excuses.
This was a visit loaded with symbolism, a relationship reinforced through lucrative arms deals, and a meeting of two leaders with a shared worldview, an ethno-religious vision for their countries.
Thanks, Tarek. It has been nearly 2 years now since Jair Bolsonaro fell from power in Brazil, yet the political turmoil that he unleashed is still having an effect.
And go to the
Bolsonaro's press conference just prior to Donald Trump's State of the Union speech this week, alongside about a dozen survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. They were there to put pressure on the president.
Today, the world will see Donald Trump have to face these survivors right there in the House gallery.
One example of an Epstein connection who has faced little accountability, Trump's Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, who lied about his ties to Epstein. He then attended the speech, shaking hands with people. Last November, more than 500 members of Congress voted to pass a new law, compelling the Department of Justice to release all the Epstein files. Just one congressman voted against it. Donald Trump then signed the bill, making it the law. But more than 3 million files remain sealed by the DOJ. And in his 1 hour and 48-minute speech, Trump steered clear of the topic, which, given that his name comes up thousands of times in the files that have been released, is no surprise.
The Trumpstein files. The state of our union is strong.
What remains to be seen in an increasingly authoritarian America. Will the media keep pressuring the White House to do what the law demands and release those files? That will tell us much more than a marathon speech ever will about the real state of that union.
The more we talk about it, the more it's remembered, the more people demand it. And yeah, we should get going.
Numbers. The best numbers. Some say imaginary numbers. Yeah. America is doing numbers. The best numbers. Some say imaginary numbers. Yes, imaginary but strong. We may replace all highways with trampolines. Finally, infrastructure that bounces back. Frankly, gravity, overrated. I never trusted it anyway. Never trusted it. We may rename Tuesday Trump Day. Woo! Always has been. Always. Is she okay?
No, I don't think so either.
You're the best, Mr. President. The way. Woo! Yeah! That's the best point so far. I didn't even say anything yet. And I agree. America.
Somebody come get their mom. Yeah. More on Iran, I guess.
What's your message to the Iraqi leadership?
Well, I get along very well with the Iraqi leadership. Thank you.
I said, what's your message? And he's like, oh, I get along with them.
That they're planning to steal the 2026 midterm elections. In fact, he says the plan is already underway. How do you respond to Governor Pritzker?
Well, he's got to focus on crime in his state. The crime in his state is doing very badly. If we went and took care of it, what we do, just like Washington, D.C., we have no crime. Memphis, it's down 82%. Louisiana, you take a look at Louisiana, what he should really do is focus on crime in his state, because there's too much of it.
Have you made a final decision of Iran? Have you made a final decision of Iran? Have you made a final decision?
No, I haven't.
Do you believe that Iran will be nuclear weapons if negotiations let down with Iran?
Well, we haven't made a final decision. We're not exactly happy with the way they're negotiating. They cannot have nuclear weapons, and we're not thrilled with the way they're negotiating. So we'll see how it all works. Decision. We're not exactly happy with the way they're negotiating. They cannot have nuclear weapons, and we're not thrilled with the way they're negotiating. So we'll see how it all works.
Yeah, that wasn't me. That was the video.
The Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money. They have no anything right now. But they're talking with us. And maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
What about the votes?
After many, many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy, but they're in big trouble, and we could very well, something good, I think very positive for the people that were expelled or worse from Cuba that live here. You know, we have people living here that want to go back to Cuba, and they're very happy with what's going on.
Yeah, why can't they go back to Cuba, though? They want to turn Cuba into the next Israel, basically, right?
I don't know anything about the Epstein files. You know, I've been fully exonerated. Yeah.
For Iran, is there a risk that strikes could turn into a long, drawn-out conflict in the Middle East?
I guess you could say there's always a risk. You know, when there's war, there's a risk in anything, both good and bad. We've had tremendous luck with myself, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi. Everything's worked out.
Al-Baghdadi.
Hammer. And so many others. Everything's worked out, and we want to keep it
Justin Hammer.
We're going to see. Look, it'd be wonderful if they'd negotiate really in good conscience, good faith and conscience, but they are not getting there. So far, Peter, they're not getting there.
And has your team told you that if you use the military now, that there will be regime change right away?
No, nobody's told me that. You don't know. I mean, nobody knows. There might be, and there might not be. It'd be nice if we could do it without, but sometimes you have to do it with. When you looked at look, we have the greatest military anywhere in the world. There's nothing close. I'd love not to use it, but sometimes you have to.
Mr. President, to be clear,
Well, Cuba's doing very badly. They're failing. Cuba right now is to put it mildly, a failing nation. And I've been hearing about Cuba. I said before, since I'm a little boy, I've been hearing about Cuba, and everybody wanted to change. And I can see that happening. Marco Rubio is dealing on it, and at a very high level. And, you know, they have no money, they have no oil, they have no food. And it's really right now a nation in deep trouble, and they want our help.
This is just sheer insanity, man.
25,000 people died last month.
Well, there we go. That is Donald Trump there speaking to the press, really taking a lot of questions about Cuba, saying that perhaps there will be a friendly takeover of the country, and talking here about the country being a failed state, talking about that the matters being
we've had
dealt
sanctions
with,
on them
Marco
for
Rubio,
like 60
Secretary of
years
State, is
plus.
dealing with it, saying they've got no oil and that they're a failing nation. But also, he mentioned Iran as well, saying that essentially they're not happy, or he's not happy, with the way things went with the talks that we've just had. Osama bin Javed is standing by in Geneva. Tohid Assadi is in the Iranian capital, Tehran, and Noor Odeh is in Ramallah. But first, let's get to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, who's in Washington. Kimberly, I mean, he says he's not happy with these talks. Now, they've ultimately, before this, had very little in terms of messaging after these talks wrapped up. What do we know?
Well, what we know is that if you look at the language of the Trump administration in recent weeks, it appears that the goalpost continues to move in terms of what Iran needs to do to meet U.S. expectations. The U.S. president has been very clear that there is a desire on the part of the United States for no nuclear weapon. That means a halt, zero uranium enrichment. But at the same time, what we know is the U.S. has also been adding to those demands, saying that there needs to also be a limit on the ballistic missile program and support for regional proxies. And this is, again, something that has been difficult to achieve for Iran, because every time there is a round of negotiation, it seems that the demands by the United States become that much greater. And so what you heard from the U.S. president just now is that he says he's not happy with how the negotiations went in Geneva on Thursday. Whether or not he's intimating that the United States made further demands, we don't know. But what he did say is there's more talking that will be taking place on Friday. And what we can discern from that is that he's referring to the Omani foreign minister that will be here in Washington meeting with J.D. Vance, the U.S. vice president, where that will be not negotiation, but diplomatic consultation, perhaps even to see if the United States can yield concessions and what Tehran's stance is.
Now, Kimberly, as you just mentioned, I mean, J.D. Vance is set to meet the Omani foreign minister. Now, what kind of impact will that have on the discussions?
Well, it's very clear that the United States is seeking to really take a dual track here. On the one hand, you heard the U.S. president just now talking about whether or not he would use the U.S. military and use a strike. And he said, we don't want to, but sometimes you
at this point, we got to say it's just a matter of time, I guess. I think we've talked it to death, man. Yeah. But you know what else is going on? Pakistan suffers heavy casualties, allegedly. There's One India News. Is this the actual audio, or are they just like adding to it? Somebody's gonna profit off of this. That's all I can say. Yeah, we got this going on, really. Can this play? No? I don't know. Nothing ever works. Why do we even spend money on a new PC? Check shit. Broken.
I feel like Toyota knows exactly who their target market is. Because we know exactly who's going to buy this. It's going to be a bunch of people in the desert using this to send fireworks over disputed territories. There is no way they don't know this, man. They must know. They must. Sometimes
gotta launch the Kachiyas somehow. Yeah. Weird. It has the retracting bed already. That's cool, actually. Need to get one.
Afghanistan's rulers say their border with Pakistan doesn't exist. They call the current demarcation imaginary. One senior Taliban minister even claimed that Afghan territory extends as far as the Attock Bridge, deep inside Pakistan. That's not isolated rhetoric, it echoes a broader sentiment within the Taliban government, where many see the border as an illegitimate colonial line drawn more than a century ago. The recent clashes along the border prove the point. After months of rising tensions and sporadic attacks, the situation boiled over into open conflict in early October. Both sides exchanged artillery, gunfire, and airstrikes, and each blamed the other for starting the fight. The timing could hardly be worse. Since 2025, more than 2 million Afghan refugees have been deported from Iran and Pakistan, with some estimates placing the total closer to 3.4 million. The United Nations has warned that this mass return is compounding instability in a country already crippled by economic collapse, food shortages, and weak governance. Renewed conflict in Afghanistan would not remain contained. Its shockwaves would inevitably reach across the region. History offers a grim warning. For centuries, Afghanistan buried empires that sought to conquer it. Yet now, in chasing the ghosts of lost glory, it risks joining them in the same soil. True. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Dyin Not Investment Advice.
Thank you. Fantastic ad.
Since taking control of Afghanistan in August 2021, the Taliban has allowed militant groups to operate freely inside its territory. While the Taliban itself has not carried out major attacks outside Afghan territory, they have given shelter and support to terrorist cells that undermine regional security, particularly at Pakistan's expense. One of these groups is the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, or TTP for short, which is an anti-Pakistan militant organization with massive territorial claims. The Afghan Taliban reportedly supports the TTP with weapons, training, and safe locations, especially in the eastern provinces of Kunar and Nangarhar. Of course, the Taliban denies involvement, but many within its senior ranks have close ties with TTP militants, and TTP leaders have appeared openly at official events in the Afghan capital. As a result, Pakistan accuses the Taliban government of failing to constrain the TTP, if not outright supporting it. This accusation, however, is tied to a much older grievance, one that traces back to the Durand Line. Drawn in 1893 by the British Empire, the Durand Line split ethnic Pashtun communities between Afghanistan and what later became Pakistan. The line itself was based on the range of British rifles, not on where people actually lived. Little to no consideration was given to geography, history, or the realities on the ground. For the locals, the agreement was a disaster. It cut through communities that had coexisted for centuries. The Pashtun people were particularly affected. The new border divided their towns and cities. Even now, 132 years later, successive Afghan governments continue to reject the Durand Line. That's not surprising though. Nearly 3 times as many ethnic Pashtuns live in Pakistan as they do in Afghanistan, which has always fueled strong irredentist feelings in Kabul. So, while Islamabad treats the Durand Line as a recognized international border, Kabul, and by extension the TTP, views it as illegitimate. The TTP's self-proclaimed objective is therefore to stoke instability and undermine Pakistan's authority in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and parts of Balochistan, and then have these regions join Afghanistan. This is the map often associated with that claim. An Afghanistan that borders the Indus River at the Attock Bridge and snakes down along the river to the sea. It encompasses all ethnic Pashtun territories and then some. There is of course strategic planning behind this territorial claim. If an Afghan government were ever able to unite the Pashtun people into a single political entity, Pashtun dominance, currently about 40% of Afghanistan's population, would grow stronger. Moreover, control over sparsely populated Balochistan would give Afghanistan access to the sea. These two goals, becoming an ethnic majority and escaping landlocked isolation, could form the foundation for a modern, centralized Afghan state. It's a vision that has been shared by all Afghan governments, old and new, including the Taliban and the TTP. However, it's doubtful that Pakistani Pashtuns would want to join with their Afghan kin, just as it is unlikely that ethnic Balochi would want anything to do with Afghanistan.
If you're unfamiliar with Stan in Arabic, it just means like the land of or the place of people. So, yeah, like, you know, everything that ends in Stan, like Mamdanistan is what they're calling New York.
Pakistan has plenty of social and economic problems, but it's miles ahead of Afghanistan in all metrics. Still, such facts may prove irrelevant. Ordinary people rarely get to decide their fate when caught in the gears of geopolitics. This post by the Afghan Interior Ministry leaves little to interpretation. It literally says that the Durand Line between Afghanistan and Pakistan was imposed by force and that the Taliban seeks to reclaim the usurped territories. Broadly speaking, while the Afghan position is understandable, it is by no means unique.
Hitting above their weight class, in my opinion, but hey, you know, if you can unite the people,
it's almost a common feature.
That would be the difference.
Even within Afghanistan, there are ethnic groups that are split from their counterparts abroad, including the Persian, Tajik, Uzbek, and Turkmen communities. And while the Durand Line was indeed drawn by the British, so too were all of Afghanistan's other borders. The northern boundary with Uzbekistan and Tajikistan was delineated by the British diplomat Nicholas O'Connor, while the western frontier with Iran was mapped by Louis Dyin. So if Afghanistan
it's crazy how the Middle East, Western Asia has just been chopped up. Regardless of the demographics, regardless of the history there, by the West. You know, I say we because, you know, the West includes the United States, the UK, you know, all these British, all these colonial ambitions, imperial ambitions. And this is purposeful, right? To divide the people so that they cannot organize and unify themselves. Classic tactics.
Half of Pakistan's territory.
You say, you know, one would look at this and say, oh, well, they were ignorant about what they were doing when they created these lines. No, these lines were intentionally created to divide big groups.
Ethnic
Definitely.
grounds, it inevitably raises questions about its own legitimacy, since roughly 60% of Afghanistan is inhabited by non-Pashtuns. The point is, the Taliban's nationalist and irredentist logic is short-sighted. These types of conflicts always cut both ways, and if pressed on, the blowback could be unimaginable. Since early 2024, Tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban government have spiraled out of control. TTP fighters have stepped up attacks on Pakistani targets, especially in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan regions. For comparison, more than 2,600 Pakistani security personnel have been killed in the last 4 years. Media outlets in this part of the world are tightly controlled, so it's nearly impossible to verify some of the details independently. But we do know the following. In March 2024, Pakistan launched airstrikes on suspected TTP hideouts inside Afghanistan, prompting Kabul to denounce the raids as a violation of sovereignty. A few months later, in September, new skirmishes erupted when Afghan Taliban border guards exchanged fire with Pakistani forces near Kuram and Khost. By December 2024, Pakistani strikes in Paktika again targeted TTP camps, killing civilians and drawing strong protests from Kabul. The following year, in March and April 2025, there were major infiltration attempts by TTP militants into Pakistan's Waziristan region, and dozens were killed as a result. Since these events, the conflict has only accelerated. Pakistan changed its rules of engagement in August and went on the offensive. It launched a massive counter-terrorism operation against the TTP in the northwest of the country. This operation is still ongoing as we speak, and it underscores that Islamabad is now at the tipping point at which it believes it has no choice but to take unilateral action against the TTP. Since then, hostilities have continued to intensify. On October 9th, TTP militants ambushed Pakistani paramilitary troops, killing 11. A day later, Pakistan responded with airstrikes in Kabul and other Afghan positions, where senior TTP leaders were believed to be in hiding. In retaliation, Afghan Taliban forces, not the TTP, targeted Pakistani border posts along the Durand line. This fueled hours of the most intense skirmishes reported between the two sides since the Taliban retook control of Afghanistan in 2021. Both sides claim to have inflicted heavy casualties on the other, while claiming to have sustained far fewer casualties themselves. Both sides also reported to have captured dozens of the other's border outposts during the fight. Again, in this corner of the world, these allegations are difficult to verify independently. After more than a week of fighting, mediators from Qatar and Turkey brokered a ceasefire on October 19th. Pakistani and Afghan Taliban officials pledged to curb cross-border violence and rein in militant activity. But that truce is already looking shaky. Small-scale clashes between Taliban, TTP, and Pakistani forces are sporadically ongoing and will likely persist for some time. Internal factionalism within the Taliban further complicates the enforcement of any truce. While the Taliban and the TTP have close ties, the latter enjoys complete autonomy. If the Afghan Taliban were to come down hard on the TTP, it would risk internal dissent, and so the Taliban has to cater to its internal jihadist ecosystem. Truce is therefore unlikely. But suppose, for argument's sake, that a genuine truce was restored and maintained, resolving the underlying reasons for the conflict would be exceedingly tricky. The geography of the region doesn't help either. South Asia and Central Asia form an interlinked security landscape. Any escalation could quickly draw in powers from far and near. Qatar has stepped up as a mediator and is now hosting talks. Doha maintains open channels with various factions within the Taliban when few others could, and this could be instrumental. Saudi Arabia could also get involved given its mutual defense pact with Pakistan. The Saudis view regional stability as crucial to safeguarding their growing security and economic ties with Islamabad. China, too, has stakes in the outcome. It previously mediated between the Afghan Taliban and Pakistan and holds enormous economic interests in regional stability, particularly in Pakistan. Even the United States could enter the picture. Trump has expressed interest in Bagram Air Base, and Pakistan's outreach to Washington could pave the way for US involvement, though it would come with high costs and security risks. India, meanwhile, may see opportunity in the chaos. Afghanistan is rich in rare earths, and with China's export controls in place, India's defense industry is left with growing shortages. New Delhi would therefore welcome any chance to secure rare earth deposits, even if it means strange bedfellows. Interestingly, the Taliban's reimagined map of Afghanistan, where the border extends to the Indus, leaves out the disputed Kashmir region entirely in the hands of India. This suggests a larger strategic move, in which India and Afghanistan team up to pressure Pakistan from both sides. It so happens that the Taliban's foreign minister visited India precisely as border clashes with Pakistan were escalating. The details of their discussions remain undisclosed, and the timing...
I wanted to watch this because I know this was like, actually from a few months ago. But to get more details on, who all is involved and why this is erupting again.
May well be coincidental. However, it could just as easily signal a deeper strategic alignment taking shape. Even so, the interplay here is complex. India joining forces with the Taliban is not exactly a good look, and Pakistan could counteract by strengthening ties with Bangladesh or backing the revival of the Northern Alliance. The outcome could be a new
revival of the Northern
with
Alliance.
layers of deterrence stacked on one another. All of this suggests that more episodes of cross-border attacks between the Afghan Taliban, the TTP, and the Pakistani army are likely in the coming months. That is hardly what the region needs, though. Afghanistan has not seen a single year of peace since 1978, and now the Taliban leadership is steering the country toward yet another war. Sometimes power lies in holding back. In chasing imaginary lines, Afghanistan risks crossing a very real one, the line between power and ruin. I've been your host Shirvan from Caspian Report. If you approve of what we do, please leave a comment, hit the like button, and mayhaps share the video. In any case, thank you for your time, and Sahol.
Hold on. Yeah, here's a more recent report. I don't know who this is. All right, isn't this translated though? This is from today.
دښمن ته درانه ځانونه اوښتي دي مجاهدینو خواته مخ طرف ته هیڅ
Where's the translation, bro?
کم به وي او ولس ټول ته ډاډ ورکوي ان شاء الله چې موږ د هیواد او دین د ساتنې لپاره شپه ورځ آماده وي ان شاء الله او د تیارسۍ په حال کې یو که هر خدمت وي چې د دین خراب باندې کیږي ان شاء الله دین ته مو ګټه رسیږي موږ د دین او د خاورې د مسلمانانو خدمت کوو ډیر سخت وړاندې نه بخیل د دې زړه مې وترو چې خدان دی ودی نه خلیدنه کوي مشکل نشته خدای مخاله ولا کارونه ډیر دي مولانا صاحب خدا هم ډیر
د مجاهدینو مورال ماشاءالله ډیر قوي او ډیر ښه وجنګېدل بس ډیر په ښه مورال باندې وجنګېدل او دښمن ته ماشاءالله ښه تلفات واوښتل آینده کې که دښمن داسې تېروتنه وکړي بیا به هم انشاءالله دغسې جواب ورکوو بیا به یې انشاءالله ورکوو
I don't think that's what he said.
د مجاهدینو مورال ماشاءالله
Google Translate failed us, man.
بس ډیر په ښه مورال باندې وجنګېدل او دښمن ته ماشاءالله ښه تلفات واوښتل آینده کې که دښمن داسې تېروتنه وکړي بیا به هم انشاءالله دغسې جواب ورکوو بیا به یې انشاءالله ورکوو
What's ITV News? Who's this? UK? Back here.
This was the Taliban rolling into position for the nighttime attack that led Pakistan to declare open war on Afghanistan. Allahu Akbar! The Afghan army launched a sustained artillery assault on Pakistani outposts along their contested border. Within hours, Islamabad had its jets in the sky, heading for Kabul and Kandahar. After a night of fighting, the damage and deaths on both sides had mounted up. Each claimed only military facilities had been targeted, but hospitals along the border were left treating civilian casualties. This man said he was watching cricket on the TV when the Taliban started shelling. 4 mortar rounds hit his village. Several people were killed. Tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan have escalated in recent weeks, collapsing a fragile ceasefire negotiated last year. Pakistan has accused the Taliban of sheltering the terrorists responsible for a series of suicide bombings in the country, including a recent mosque attack in Islamabad. The defence minister said Pakistan's patience has now run out and warned Afghanistan to prepare for conflict. Lieutenant General Chowdhury described how his forces had won the first round.
We were ready, vigilant. The Pakistan Armed Forces, Pakistan Army, responded immediately and effectively. At all 53 locations, the attack was repulsed.
On paper, Pakistan has a superior military to the Taliban, but Afghanistan's battle-hardened forces are not shying away from a fight with their neighbour, even producing this propaganda footage, apparently showing the call, telling its border forces to strike.
They made a hype video? That's crazy.
Both governments claim to have inflicted heavy losses on the other. The coming days will determine whether this military tit-for-tat escalates into a full-blown war. Debbie Edward, ITV News.
Pakistan has declared what its defence minister calls open war against its neighbour Afghanistan. It carried out airstrikes on Kabul and 2 other Afghan provinces earlier this morning. Pakistan says this is retaliation for attacks on its territory by militants it claims are backed by the Afghan Taliban. It comes after months of rising tension and deadly clashes. Joining me now is Dr. Fazana Sheikh, who
All right, it's late, man. I'm gonna call it here. Yeah, we're gonna roll out on this. There you go. Oh, good stream. Good times. What do we did like almost 4 hours a day? Yeah. Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, no war yet. As soon as I go offline, he's gonna bomb something. Guaranteed.
I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. Johnny wants a brain, Johnny wants to suck on a coke. Johnny wants a woman, Johnny wants to think of a joke. Johnny's in America, Johnny looks up at the stars. Johnny combs his hair and Johnny wants pussy and cars. Johnny's in America.